also asked the government to provide guidance on how the army officers will be involved in restoring order within 2 days now. He said that the deployment of the army without any explanation and period of service is like making the nation under a military rule. He has raised concerns that since the army has not been trained to deal with civilians, its use in the country can silence Kenyans who exercise their basic rights, thus causing lack of good relations between civilians and the military. However, Judge Mugambi has said that the court will continue to hear complaints arising from violations of rights that may be carried out within the period that the military is deployed.
That the continuation of the military in assisting the police is necessary in view of the need to preserve order, peace and public safety and protect critical infrastructure, and is upheld as it is in line with the provisions of the Constitution and the relevant statutes. 2. That it is necessary and is hereby directed that the terms of engagement, duration of engagement, areas of engagement be clearly defined and gazetted within the next 2 days to alleviate the public fear that their liberties might be put in jeopardy and give public confidence that their liberties will be observed during the duration of such military engagement.
In its case, LSK claimed that there is currently no situation in the country that warrants the deployment of the military. Now, northeastern leaders have come out to defend the Director of Intelligence, Nuruddin Haji, against accusations by Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua that he failed to advise the President. Led by the Dub Member of Parliament, Farah Mali, leaders have said that Gachagua's remarks demean the office of the President, as he was the one who proposed Haji for the position. Now, the leaders blame Gachagua following the protest, even raising allegations that he aims to use them to dismantle the government. Now, they want him to resign if he has no faith in the government his house.
Whereas Rigathi Gachagua continues to serve as the Vice Deputy President of this country, we call on him to resign immediately. If he's not happy with his president, let him resign from this administration and let him prepare himself for the contest in 2027. He can run in as a presidential candidate in 2027, and if he's going to be popular with the Kenyan people, we will see what he's going to do. You cannot become a president of this country by continuously dividing Kenyans along ethnic lines, along class lines, along all sorts of things. This country cannot, shall not, will not be led by such divisive elements in this country.
Mali's statement has been supported by other leaders who strongly criticized Gachagua on how he handles issues within government.
Remember, the Deputy President is a member of the National Security Advisory Council. He sits in that committee, and therefore he will be privy to a lot of briefings. Unfortunately, instead of taking his concerns to that committee so it can be addressed, he chose to address senior public officers who ordinarily will not be discussed in public.
You don't expect needs to go on the road or to go parliament and protect parliament. But the way it has come out, that is personal attack to one individual.
You were selected, and I repeat it, you were selected. I was there when you were being selected. The decision to select you over Kindiki changed in a couple of hours, about 12 hours. It could have been Kindiki as deputy president. It's in public domain.
We know where you come from, where you are, and where you are going. You are using a finance bill as a scapegoat. And your intention is to fight with our president, His Excellency William Ruto.
Who is this person, second in command, who talks about a DG of NIS? That is destroying that country, our country. We cannot accept it.
Now, the Teachers Service Commission has initiated an appeal process for 742 intern teachers dismissed due to a recent work boycott. Now, TSC CEO Nancy Macharia told senior school principals that plans were underway to secure permanent and pensionable contracts for the junior secondary school teachers currently serving in schools. Macharia said that more teachers will be promoted during the 2024-2025 financial year, noting that the government has allocated the commission 1 billion shillings for the promotions. She welcomed the 545 newly promoted principals attending their first meeting and urged them to encourage eligible teachers in their schools to apply for vacancies once they are advertised. I'm Dennis Aseda. Good morning.
102.5 SpiceFM, Kisumu.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
You tune into Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Ramanya.
Amen. Amen.
So 1 hour is over?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It gets over.
Can you imagine
in 20 minutes.
What the big boys have also done?
I'm very proud of myself.
When you understand about partnership in politics, it's like the way marriage is these days. When you're looking for a wife, you're like, oh, you know, maybe you can help me pay for fees as I pay for the rent.
Why should you have a lioness living in your bedroom?
I have to tell you a story. I went for a prayer meeting, which was called for the spouses of candidates for senators and governors. And when I got to the gate, the lady who was the secretary, she refused to. She's telling me, no. Leo tunataka wa mama. Leo ni wa mama. I'm telling her, no. She said, no, sio siku yenu. And I thought, there's a problem here, because if it was a man, but this was a lady.
It will be called First Ladies until you change the name.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
If a lion shows you its teeth, it doesn't mean it likes you.
It doesn't mean it likes you. It won't start. A liar calls as witness one who is either dead or far away. Say it in Kiswahili.
Ben low, nin inte, yenin der, ayu markati kadikta. This character called a liar. He has disturbed people. So when you tell him, who are your witnesses, he will take you to a place where it is difficult to verify.
For someone like me who sweats a lot, I cannot survive there. Sweating is biblical. Good. And you must blame it on Adam, not because Adam messed up and he was told, now you fellow you, by the sweat of your brow, thou shalt eat.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can't run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning and welcome to Friday. All right, let's take a look at the streets, which were cordoned off in many areas yesterday. For now, we're not seeing much in terms of traffic. Coming off of Mombasa Road, it looks pretty good, and I think we'll get into the city without an issue at all. On the Thika Superhighway as well, not much is happening with traffic this morning. Coming out of Westlands, you're doing all right as well. Limuru Road is looking good coming into the CBD. There's a little bit of a hold-up on Muranga Road as you get towards the Globe Cinema roundabout, but I think we'll be okay for now. Okay, let's take a look at Outer Ring, coming off of Kangunda Road, and then heading out towards the Thika Superhighway. From that other area, we see the GSU headquarters. A bit of traffic, and that's inbound. So, an eye on everything. Today is what we'll keep. Let's talk SpiceFM. KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Hey, Mambo namna gani, Mambo vipi, how you doing, Kenya and the world? Welcome to Friday. It's the final Friday of June, and just like this, we are getting into half two of the year. Like that.
Q3.
Hey. City.
Yes, please.
How you doing?
Thank you very much, please.
Eh?
Yes.
Very good.
Today is the day of the hoodie, clearly.
Yes. Hii ni hoodie brigade. Kama una hoodie, sauria.
Hoodie ni kitu ingine. Hoodie.
Yes.
Hey guys,
it's
cold.
What? It's cold, my friend.
It's cold, but you guys are a bit extreme.
In solidarity.
Forever.
Va yako.
Ni ndogo.
Ama nywele sasa ndio shida.
Yeah, nywele ndio shida. I was going to say kichwa yangu ni kubwa, lakini
wewe uko na kichwa kubwa hiyo. Na ngumu.
Kwenda huko.
You've been given direction.
Big and hard-headed.
Yes,
Me, Sasa.
And you, Eric,
I'm hard-headed.
I should go there.
Ednah, are you hearing what these guys are saying? They're saying I'm stubborn. Is it true? They're saying I'm stubborn. No.
You're asking Ednah to justify herself, are you? Because if she says yes, she's talking about herself.
If she says yes, I'll go and finish her.
Where? Otherwise, mambo ikoje? Ndu?
Me, I'm still sad.
Yeah.
Bwana. Hey, hapana. There's a cloud of something over me. I can't.
Oh, yeah.
Nina, hapana. We see
So
children.
you cannot see clearly now that the rain is gone?
No, I can't.
All you can see is obstacles in the way.
Big ones.
All right.
So, Jenny.
They kill children,
Things gonna
Bwana.
be all right. Things gonna be all right.
I hope so.
Things gonna be all right.
It'll be a bright and shiny day soon.
And there are looters on the streets.
Actually, these
are those ones being killed?
These are committed card-carrying
That's an interesting question. Are the looters being killed?
Because if they are, then I'm okay.
Sheesh, man.
I'm sorry, but yeah.
Do you know, people struggle to put up a structure called a kiosk.
Yeah.
They really struggle.
Yeah.
These guys are looting from these very, very, very simple business people who are trying to make a living. These guys are not even heading the prosperity route. It's just ensuring that you live from day to day.
Bwana. Sipoa.
No, Sipoa at all.
On this Friday, we're going to have two conversations. Boniface Mwangi, you know him. He's an activist and a defender of many things on matters of governance and rights. Will be joining us at 8 a.m. We know he's been very, very active in the Gen Z protests. And then we know that these protests have sort of morphed from what we saw last week and what we are seeing at the end of this week. They're different. But then he'll be joining us. He'll tell us from what he's seen from previous organizations and demonstrations that he has held and organized, and what he has witnessed and observed about these ones. What are the lessons learned? What are the ups? What are the downs? What is it that needs to be taken as the lessons here from everybody, from activists such as himself, from those in positions of leadership going forward? What are the lessons? And then before that, at 7 a.m., we'll be speaking with the president of the Law Society of Kenya, Faith Odhiambo, to come and tell us about the law and the constitution. Do Kenyans have faith in authorities? Plus, she'll also tell us what happened in court yesterday. The LSK had taken the matter of the KDF to court, and we know the decision of the court. She'll also be telling us about the very, very many people who had been abducted by authorities and what they're telling the Law Society, because the LSK members have been very, very active in seeking to secure their release, and they've successfully done so for many of them. So she'll come and tell us what exactly are they hearing from those people who have been abducted. How are they abducted? What are they being asked? Where are they being held? How are they released? Under what conditions? Those that had been arrested just for participating in the demos, and LSK also represented them in court. What is it that we see and learn from all this? 16 minutes after 6. The live streams are up everywhere. And soon Ednah will go into also the X. We'll be live on X as well. But we are on TikTok. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on Radio Garden and many other places. But of course, we start with SpiceFM across the country.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
Clear conditions at 12 degrees in Nairobi. The sun has a 12 degrees below It's 18 and cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 28, Kampala is partly cloudy at 22, highs of 26, Dar es Salaam that's partly cloudy highs of 30, 6 degrees and 30 in Johannesburg, highs of 17, Mogadishu highs of close to cloudy this morning, partly cloudy at 26, Lagos with highs of 31, and Kinshasa is clear at 21, going to highs of 32. Friday afternoon will go to highs of 37 in Beijing, and it's 15 and cloudy in Paris, going to highs of 25, while 22 will be the high in a cloudy London at 14. Looking into New York, Thursday night, clear at 21, coming into Friday, highs of 31 and lows of 16.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Good morning, everybody. People are tuned in this morning. Peter Kiario says good morning from Mombasa. Stay safe and have a nice weekend. Okay. Evans and Tabo says good morning. And do see to Eric and Yaboke, we love you all. Be blessed. To you too, sir. Okay. Idris Bakari is also tuned in this morning from Qatar. Kelvin Kaburu says good morning from Kawasukari. Eric, cheza dunia tunapita. Kila kitu itabakia. Binadamu ni mchanga.
Tutafuta hiyo wimbo.
So Samuel Wanja says good morning, team. Tuned in is Alvin Obambo. Charles Ray is also here this morning and says good morning, CT Wisdom Tupu. Even Babu CT Wisdom Tupu. Robert Bogo is tuning from Mombasa this morning. Stella says, I love you all. Good morning to you too, sister. My heart goes out to all the families that have lost their heroes. Indeed, the heart has to beat for them, that's for sure. Northeastern leaders are still stuck to tribal past. Ntuetu. Okay. Doha tuko swadak. What? Swadakta.
We keep learning, don't we?
What are those?
Mambo ni swadakta kabisa.
What is that? What's that?
Mambo is good.
Mambo is good.
It's bien.
Oh, c'est bien? C'est très bien. Good morning, Ndu Ifoma Okoh. They've called on my names this morning. How far? Where? CT Muga, Ednah, and the man on the seat, Eric Latiff. Good morning. Moses Nyabura says good morning. Tuned in from Nakuru. One Mike says good morning. Tuned in from Baltimore. Good morning from Mahali Flani. Okay, sawa. Mtuflani is tuned in from Mahali Flani. All right. Leo, good morning. He's greeted the princess and everybody else. Politicians are the enemy of progress in Kenya. Oi, Kevin, good morning. Kabogo G says, good morning to the Spices and my fellow Kenyans. Good morning to you. Good morning from Nyeri, says Ian Jomo. Hey, I need to go quickly because there's so many of you. Michael Olande says, good morning. Mungu Mbele says, I have cried. For all those families that have lost heroes, Mungu apere nguvu. Hey. Yeah, Simon Toswell Shuru says, good morning. Gavinji Gatobu, Tibbs Muge, we see you, Tiberius. Joe Mungai is tuning in from Bonnie Lake in Washington, sending thoughts and prayers indeed. Mark Common, Brian Otieno, Dennis Hamisi, Anthony Mbogwa, Alinur Eunice, we see you. King Dave, Henry, good morning. Mama J, yes indeed, better days ahead. Kibet is also tuned in and he's asking, kwani ni baridi hivyo, Eric?
Bwana.
Hussein Ali also says good morning. Sam Wambo is tuned in. Anwar Omar, I love that name, Anwar. Vinny says good morning. David Martins, Sami Mwalili. Hey, everybody, we see you. Lawrence Kea, Ogeto Justice, Washington Mbiti, Owen Bosire, everybody, and those who are still trickling in. Karibuni Sana. Thank you for joining us.
Final day of Proverbs from the Islamic Republic of
Mauritania. What a child says, they have heard from whom?
What a child says, they have heard from whom. Okay. Be careful what you say in front of your children.
Now be very careful.
When you see them out there on the street saying Ruto must go, they heard it from home.
They hear you. They hear you. When you hear young people saying, unajua kabila hii wako na hii na hii na hii. They heard you. They hear you. But this group have said that one, they are not abiding by what they have heard. Hakuna kitu tribeless kama hii maandamano. Until it got to where it is now, where it's actually changed color, complexion, tenye hii kitu.
Easier to tribeless.
Hapana, sile maandamano tulikuwa tunaona. This thing has acquired a completely new complexion.
Yes. Ndu?
Yes.
The headlines, Tafadhali.
Okay, on the front page of the Standard today, that's what we're looking at, isn't it?
Yeah.
The military question is very front and center right now. The military will remain in the streets to help police quell protests, a court ruled yesterday, as thousands of demonstrators came out in major towns, albeit in smaller numbers than on Tuesday, to protest against the Ruto administration. Now look at that. Not to protest against the finance bill, but to protest against the Ruto administration. What else are we looking at? DP borrows from Ruto's playbook. Rigathi Gachagua has learnt the art of taking credit out of government projects while disassociating himself from its unpopular decisions. Yes, so this is a big thing. It's hitting us in the face. But how about we look over here at this shiny thing here, guys? That's what he's doing. So we're told. America's call for restraint amid finance bill protests backs dialogue. There's a question, though. Dialogue with whom? Isn't it? Between whom and whom will this dialogue take place? Anti-finance protests continue countrywide, though on a lower scale. Opulence flaunting MPs eat humble pie and seek ways to reconnect with voters. It's going to be a long road ahead for that, but it's interesting to see that that's the road they've taken.
Yeah.
Bishop Kosgei's ordeal at the hand of Gen Z protesters in Parliament siege. That was interesting to watch, or rather to see as well. Yes, I mean, this
like
stories
that,
go
like
back
that,
and forth. Yes.
The CNN presidential debate has concluded a short while ago. Did you see it? Biden versus Trump. Biden was rumbling out. Trump was refusing to answer some questions. And just his message, you have allowed these people to come into our country.
You've not allowed America to be great.
You're just allowing people to come into our country. They're
These people.
What? Hey. The Nairobian has this headline. Gen Z are planned to save Kenyans. Tribeless and fearless. At first, it appeared to be the usual lamentations on social media platforms, but before long, the youth had galvanized themselves against the controversial finance bill, forcing President Bill to climb down, as his deputy Rigathi Gachagua admitted the government is dysfunctional. Kakamega's Sin Street, where Lungula boozing start at 7 p.m. sharp.
What?
In Kakamega, there's a street where Lungula and booze start at 7 p.m. sharp.
What's Lungula?
The other thing that goes with booze.
Cigarette?
No.
That's it. No, it's cigarettes, Eric. Yes.
Yeah, cigarettes.
And the smoking of cigarettes.
Open sewers in Nairobi that no one cares to cover. Finance, the treasury boss Ndongo is not whether but how to tax. Oh, for treasury boss Ndongo, it's not whether but how to tax. Inaki and Nico Williams, two brothers, one club, and a 40-year wait for a trophy. There's a feature there. And then there's a story here, dead end. Anglican reverend in love triangle killed. Caught taxi driver accused of robbing client 30,000 shillings. These are more stories in the Nairobian today.
In the Star. This is online. Fresh till green collar will come later.
Okay.
Fresh demands for Ruto. Kick out crooks, tighten belt. Online campaign demands sweeping changes in government, sacking any official ever charged or has the slightest whiff of corruption.
Out, all of them.
Bwana,
if you have ever been charged,
out, we talk.
Or there's a slightest whiff
yani,
of corruption.
Suggestion Kwambali.
Come and be going.
Meeting in disarray after politicians disagree on demos. Some want the president not to sign the bill, others push for its assent. This is in corridors of power. Gen Z scaled down protests amid heavy military deployment. And you're here. Yes. Homa Bay suspends cesarean procedures for gunshot victims. At least 11 patients rushed to the hospital.
Cesarean procedures?
Yes, they were told, ngoja kidogo. Some people have been shot. So they're attending to these fellows with gunshot wounds.
Okay.
Voilà.
Yes. Okay, I get it.
Umegel it?
Yeah.
Basa huyo ndio yeye.
Okay.
Yes.
There's a newspaper called The People Daily. Okay, it's been having some interesting headlines lately. Today's headline, Faces of Shame. And they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mugshots of leaders on the front page here. One of them, Papawa Roma, Moses Wetangula, National Assembly Speaker. The other one, Kimani Ichung'wah, Leader of Majority. The other one's Silvana Zosoro, Majority Whip. Kuria Kimani, Chairman Finance Committee. Professor Jogona Ndungu, Treasury CS. Alice Nganga, Thika Town MP. Owen Bayer, Deputy Majority Whip. Gladys Boss Cholet, Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. And Dede Nyoro, Chairman of Budget Committee. The other one is Rachel Nyamai, Kitui South MP. With disdain for the people, these individuals deployed their powers to bulldoze through punitive tax laws, leading to the killing of brave Kenyan children in Parliament invasion. So they are called what? Faces of Shame. They're quoting Ichung'wah here. The Gen Z have iPhones and use Uber to protest. After protesting, they get into KFC to eat chicken. They use bottled water. Didn't you see them? They don't understand the cost of electricity. That thing will haunt this guy for a while.
For a long while.
That one. Wachatu.
Newsbit, Ruto turns guns on security chiefs. And then another headline here, Biden top official calls president on finance bill. That's it. Hi, you'll tell us about traffic?
So.
Sindio, on what's happening on the roads? Yep. Okay, it is 29 minutes after 6. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Really none of that at this hour. We're looking at free and easy movement from the Thika Superhighway all the way into the city. Let's look at how far back we see this, and it's clear, very clear, coming in all the way from Kawan Sukari out towards Kasarani and then into the city centre, through and through Muranga Road. Not a problem. Then we're also getting into the city and then to the Globe Cinema roundabout. And as you do that, there's a little bit of traffic. We're not ready yet. For the first time in a couple of days when we're seeing a little bit of traffic just at the tunnel up ahead. But before that, I think we're all right. Coming out of Western's, not a problem. James Gishuru free and clear, crossing over Waiyaki Way onto the Red Hill Link Road. Nothing happening here. And Limuru Road also free and clear coming into the CBD. All right, what's coming off of Ngong Road? Nothing, actually, at this point. Looks like it's going to be another easy day in terms of traffic. We're going to keep an eye on things and see how it all develops. Getting into the morning, we'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X. Hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Twende basi tuambie story.
The court declines to order military to leave the streets and return to the barracks. The High Court yesterday affirmed the government's decision to deploy the military to assist the police to quell protests. Justice Lawrence Mugambi, however, gave a caveat that the Defence Ministry should gazette the Kenya Defence Force's terms of engagement and the duration of the operation within 2 days. So that was from yesterday. They got, today, tomorrow, to do that? Mugambi observed that although the deployment is justified, it is against the law to have the disciplined forces out of the barracks in a blanket manner. You don't just come for. Has to be declared where you're going and for how long. The judge said the failure to indicate why the military officers were out of their barracks or their bases and for how long was creating apprehension. And I quote, "It is common knowledge that by its nature and training, the military is not equipped or is ill-equipped to deal with civilian population, as it is trained to deal with armed combat, as its principle is primarily suppression through the use of force to resolve crises." So this is what they know. Combat, use force to shut a thing down. Now, how can you do that when civilians of the same country are involved? So this was Mugambi's problem.
Okay.
I would therefore agree with the petitioner that to deploy the military in a blanket manner without defining their scope of operation and the duration of the operation is a dangerous trend that can bring about militarization of the country, which is an antithetical to the enjoyment of rights and freedoms. So that is where he said, I have a problem. So you need to come and tell me within 2 days where they're going to be, what they will be doing, and for how long. Without that, it makes it very difficult, and you're creating a situation in the country that is very uncomfortable. He, however, said that involvement of the military is critical to protect properties and government installments because they can see that things were quickly going south. He observed that the Supreme Court and Parliament had been vandalized after peaceful protests turned chaotic. Justice Mugambi was of the view that to strike a balance, the government should publish the critical or crucial information for Kenyans to scrutinize and be informed. At the same time, he directed that the file will remain open for oversight and Kenyans to raise concern if there be a violation of the law. So that while this operation is going on, should anybody see that something is going wrong, if we see this wanton, suppression, then come and tell us so that we then know what to do. So it seems as though from the offset, Mugambi is saying, guard those installations. And without really saying it, leave people alone.
If it's about those installations, go there.
Go there.
Okay.
But don't now go and start harassing people in the streets. However, you know what? Just the sight of military vehicles in the street just gives you a bit of a... It's just nervous. You feel it. Kind of like, oh my God, what is this?
It's a kind of fear?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I remember going much younger, going to Sierra Leone. And when there was a military presence in the street, it's eerie. And people are just like, you don't know where to go. You walk really quickly in the street.
Careful, it could turn on its head at any moment. The Cabinet Secretary in charge of Defence tweeted immediately after the court decision, and he said, the court has upheld the KDF deployment of 25th June pursuant to the Constitution and ordered, and he says, breaking it down, the deployment of KDF to assist the National Police was necessary and is being upheld. It's necessary that the terms of engagement, duration and areas of engagement be gazetted within the next 2 days to allay the apprehension of civilians that their fundamental rights will be curtailed by the KDF deployment. The court retains residual powers and remains open to consider any complaints of violations of rights during and even after the deployment. And then he goes on now to say, the Cabinet Secretary, the government, through the Ministry of Defence, will comply with court decision and issue a new Gazette notice in due course. We shall preserve peace and public safety and protect critical infrastructure of all the three arms of government. The government and KDF in particular will at all times respect the Constitution and the law in discharging its mandate. So he says he'll issue a new Gazette notice in due course. He's been given 2 days. He does not have due course.
No. It's 2 days.
Yes, 2 days.
2 days, man. It's 48 hours. It's not,
so in number of due course, if he doesn't do it today,
you have tomorrow. Literally.
That's it. So you have to come up with the terms. But then now you ask yourself, so where this parliament thing of ours, right? When they actually okayed this thing within such a short time, did they even pause to think that it is their mandate to actually ask these questions that the judge was asking?
And isn't that the problem? That one often asks, with the parliament and the way it is currently constituted, are they aware of that their role and their responsibility? City often says, well, you guys, you can't, it's not, you just don't know. It's not a matter of, can we hope? You don't know what you're supposed to be doing. The questions you're supposed to be asking, you're not asking.
What I find strange in all this, everyone says we're the sovereign, we're the sovereign, we're the sovereign. And our interests are supposed to be represented by the members of parliament. Now, when something is critical and it is clear by the rising temperatures that this is a serious matter, 30 minutes, you've rushed through it, appropriation, you've rushed through it. Now, what have you just done? You have abducted the rights of the citizenry. The representation they expect from you has not been coming.
It hasn't happened.
Yes. So who here is breaking the law?
Exactly.
Who here is actually ensuring that the sovereign's will and the sovereign's desires are not met? It is those whom we delegated powers to. Now,
so if it's not happening, what are you doing?
If there are people who should be held to account, it is the members of parliament
100%.
whom we gave the powers delegated to be able to look after our interests. And it is clear the interest was not being looked after.
Kabisa.
Clear.
We said it many times here that Justin Muturi's 11th and 12th parliaments were hopeless and useless, and just this one, the 13th.
This one is the spawn of hopelessness and uselessness. As in, hopelessness and uselessness got together, they had a baby. It's this.
Hey, man.
That's exactly what it is. And it's not even being mean. It's just the truth. The three things. You had 3 things to do, literally. 3 things to do. And you don't know how to do them. I'm not kidding you. It's not being mean. It is, whether you tell me it has been captured, whether you tell me that, no. Is your brain functioning? Can you blink and open your eyes? When you open your mouth, does a sound come out of it? You're a functioning human being.
Yeah.
You can do your job, but you choose not to. So there's many things wrong with you. I'm not kidding. Those 2 things came together, they spawned and had offspring. That's the 13th parliament.
Do these people seem to have been doing wrong for so long that in their minds, wrong has become right. People are saying it. Every day the noise is getting louder and you still don't hear it. They're outside your doors saying, we don't want this thing. You are still not hearing it. You're saying, now let's rush this thing through. I just agree.
And then, to make it worse, the same thing that you agreed on, right? The very next day, 24 hours later, somebody said they're rejecting that thing. And in fact,
you clap because, oh my God, that thing was really going to hurt our people.
I don't get it. Are you schizophrenic? What's wrong?
If someone calls for a recall of all these members of parliament, and I mean all, okay, they will not be wrong. This one, those in the opposition tell us, we said this, but you know something? These people who are in the opposition right now were in government in the previous government. Some of these issues that we're dealing with are a carryover from the previous government. What did they do then? Did they not okay it?
They were okay.
Yes. So everyone is culpable here. There's no one who's going to claim that they are whiter than snow. They are all culpable.
They were okaying it.
Yes.
Had the Kuru court not gone to court, Parliament would not have started to consider the issue of Haiti.
No, they wouldn't have.
As in, these are things. You ask yourself, what on earth is going on?
Yes.
Duale deployed the military to go and assist Kindiki last year. Parliament, they were like, no, you should not have done that. You should have come to us first. Oh, but there's a law, there's a Duale has done it again.
Same thing. Same.
And all you do is, okay, so you come, you bring it, we okay it for you. Sawa. As in, Parliament is just a rubber stamp.
The
And even that one doesn't stamp well.
You know, here in this country, we seem to have two arms of government. It's not three. Yes. We have the executive and we have the judiciary.
The other guys are just...
Parliament, branch of the executive.
It's true.
And they will tell you we're being unfair. Actually, no. Take a step back and just look at what you do on a daily basis. Just take a step.
I can't.
Yeah. So, demos continued in major towns yesterday despite the military and police barricades. The death toll, injuries and disruption of business continued yesterday as protesters took to the streets in several towns to express their displeasure with President Ruto's government. The protesters were saying the president and his top officials should resign, adding that they had lost faith in his administration. Despite the heavy security deployment in several parts of the country and the president's decision to send the controversial bill back to parliament, the protesters took to the streets of Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Kisii, Kakamega, Migori and Kisii towns. However, there was an easy calm in Eldoret, the president's hometown, which witnessed a trail of destruction during Tuesday's protest. Yesterday, 4 people were nursing gunshot wounds in Migori, while the death toll in Mombasa rose to 3 as police countered protests with brutal force. In Mombasa, protesters and activists found 2 bodies with bullet wounds at Coast General Mortuary. Muslim for Human Rights Rapid Response Officer Francis Auma said he saw 2 unidentified bodies lying at the Coast General and Referral Hospital morgue. But Coast Regional Police Commander George Seda said no one had died in the region as a result of the protests. Businesses remained closed as police engaged the protesters in running battles in Mombasa city centre. The demonstration started at 10 a.m. They involved several groups that had split up. First group was in the town centre, the other one was at Sabasaba, which went on to Maxtan. This group was tear-gassed after the demo turned violent at Maxtan. Before the group in the town centre started the march, they gathered at Uhuru Garden along Moi Avenue. They moved to the roundabout and then to the Likoni Ferry, and they followed Digo Road before going to Mwembe Tayari. They later returned the Mwembe Tayari to Treasury Square and were blocked from proceeding to the State Lodge on Mamangina Drive. So we saw this, and there was a lot of, the running battles and all, but I think what stood out for me was the carnage and the destruction of people's property.
This is wrong.
By so-called protesters.
It is wrong.
Because this is now the new twist. Previously, we were talking about these Gen Zs. They are all peaceful. They are not, touching anybody's property. They are not disturbing anybody from going their merry way. They are just out there. And now suddenly, we have people. I saw a video clip from around Pakistan yesterday, where there's this guy on a motorbike, and the protesters were coming, and they approached him, and they accosted him. You could see they were robbing the guy. So he couldn't really get off the motorbike. He couldn't move. So it's like they took maybe a mobile phone and some things on him, and they left him. Jesus. And then you've seen what happened. The businesses that were torched on Tuesday.
Yeah.
The ones that were again being invaded yesterday, and the destruction left. You can see somebody saying, "This was my shop. This was my source of livelihood." They came in. They robbed everything. They entered supermarket. They took things off the shelves. Go in, pick stuff from the shelves and go. The looting is not the part of the demonstrations that we've seen so far.
No, it is not.
And this brings in that new angle. I mean, so what next? What is their next course of action for the people who actually were coming out to genuinely protest and air their grievances? Because these ones who are out here, they're not doing that. These ones are taking advantage just to rob people. They're criminal elements.
We've seen this before when there have been demonstrations by Kenyans against, and we've seen this. Somebody who was demonstrating and simply raising their voice so that whatever was wrong should be made right. What time do they have to enter a supermarket and vandalize it and take everything that they possibly can?
No.
The understanding of police presence was always that they would protect, they would ensure that law and order is maintained, and also they would protect property. Okay? So now, were they overwhelmed were these things happening in too many places and it was sporadic and they were not able to actually meet the need that was required? Because the narrative of the criminal element is a reality.
Yeah.
You cannot have days of peaceful protest and it is peaceful. You can't call it anything else. And then all of a sudden the thing is turned on its head. No. And when one hears of suggestions and innuendos that perhaps these people who are funded and brought in, one begins to think that there might be some truth to this.
And then you go ahead and wonder, if the intelligence services can tell that these are hired goons, that they've been brought into this, why aren't you taking action?
Surely you should know them. The president's speech was clear about it. It was very, very clear. It said criminal elements.
Yep.
So you know they're criminal elements.
Deal with them.
Precisely.
Remove them.
Yes.
Essentially. If you know that, then you also then know how to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then what question? You have apparatuses in place to get rid of such things. Why don't you do it? Instead of coming to tell us that they're okay, do something about it.
Yep. We should by now be hearing that people have been arrested for
absolutely
funding criminal elements to infiltrate the peaceful protests.
This is it. Look, you guys, by the time you get that intelligence, because look, like I said, the apparatus is there. By the time you have intelligence that somebody is funding something, that's not the information that you have in totality. You have more. So what stops you then from sorting that issue out and allowing the people to continue to protest? Sort it out. If you know that there is external funding for criminal activity, then you know until who it is. Deal with that. And I'm not connecting the two, but let me tell you about how Gachagua is using Ruto's style book to win public support. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's abrasive politics bears a striking resemblance to the style deployed by President William Ruto when he was former President Uhuru Kenyatta's deputy. Okay? Now, like Ruto, Gachagua has learnt the art of taking credit out of government projects while disassociating himself from unpopular government decisions that may impede his political ambitions.
Right.
He has at the same time learnt playing the victim, a political strategy that has worked wonders as his popularity has accelerated recently in Mount Kenya. Wednesday, Gachagua made startling revelations in blaming National Intelligence Service Director General Nuruddin Haji for failing to advise the president that the Finance Bill 2024 was very unpopular. As though you couldn't see it anywhere. Anyhow.
You needed to be given
the intelligence. Okay? And he does not fear contradicting his boss, in stark contrast to his boss's speech in Nairobi that there was no more extrajudicial killing, after he too accused NIS of dysfunctionality and alleged their involvement in abducting youthful protesters. He described Haji as an incompetent civil servant who fed Ruto with incorrect intelligence briefs. So, okay, hold on a minute. The same Nuruddin Haji should have given Ruto this intelligence that it was unpopular, this finance bill. But the same Haji also is incompetent because he's telling him that they are funding these groups. So you need pick a side. According to him, it is embarrassing that it had to take protests, deaths, and destruction of properties for the president to realize the extent of the problem. NIS embarrassed the president. Okay. In an unprecedented escalation of political tensions, Gachagua criticized Haji for his Tuesday anti-government protests, and claimed that NIS failed to adequately inform the president about the widespread opposition to the Finance Bill 2024, etc., etc., etc.
How is that Ruto's book?
I don't know. But you know what I'm going to go with here? This line. While disassociating himself from unpopular government decisions that may impede his political ambition. Take this and apply it everywhere, and then you have your answer. Don't even do all these other things. Take that line, apply it here, apply it up, down, everywhere, under. That's what you know what's going on here.
When Ruto was complaining, this show kept asking Ruto, "So you resign?
Come on, Ishida."
If you actually want to delink yourself from this administration in which you're a part of, you're second in command, so you just resign. Okay.
Dissociate yourself properly.
Completely.
Same thing we'll tell Rigathi Gachagua. Okay? If indeed you are feeling you're sidelined, you're not part of this government, your counsel is not being heeded.
You're playing second fiddle.
Because he told us he is the only one who was in Kasarani who took the Bible and swore to assist the president. And basically he was implying that he is no longer being able to assist the president. So if the only job that you have, you're not doing it,
If If that's the only thing, and that only thing you're not doing.
Yeah.
To the left.
Yeah. Why do you have to keep buying your salmon?
Sure. By your own admission, I've said. There's
And
nothing
new
you're doing.
spoons and plates.
Every time you're a public figure and you venture to speak, what you say tells us more than you would actually probably want us to know.
100%.
Because we listen, we hear first of all, then we listen. And then we analyze what you've just said. And we analyze it against the backdrop of other things that you have said. Okay. Sometimes I get the impression that when leaders speak, it's like they've forgotten that they were elected. Yes. And it's like they have forgotten that they're supposed to be accountable to certain people. And the people are the ones who voted them in. Because everything seems to be they're accountable to themselves. Now, it speaks clearly that they have usurped the power of the sovereign. When people behave in this manner, where they seem to be of the opinion that it is them to decide and it's them to determine, the power of the sovereign has been usurped. Now, when you usurp our power, because they believe that we are the ones who are interfering with their power, they don't have power unless it's delegated to them.
To them.
Yes.
And
they don't have
people
it.
are the ones who delegate.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You usurp power for so long, you actually begin to believe that the power is actually yours and you distribute it to the citizenry as and when you see fit.
Where? Yeah.
Right.
Meanwhile, we don't have IEBC, senior.
No, we don't.
But now, apparently, the National Assembly and the Senate have agreed on the new bill on IEBC Amendment Bill 2024, which now paves the way for reconstitution of the electoral agency. The approval of the bill by the National Assembly last week and the adoption of key proposals by the Senate will now see the bill headed for presidential assent, with the reformation of the electoral body now in sight. You know, there are two constituencies that don't have MPs now. Okay? There was the one in Kilifi, what's it called? Banisa constituency in Mandera. 2 wards in Western Kenya who have gone for months without an MP and MCAs respectively after the positions fell vacant. There was another seat that was declared vacant by the Speaker the other day after a petition in court. Not Magarini. It'll come. I'm sure somebody will point it out to us in the comments. It's one of those Kilifi constituencies. Now, what does the new thingy-majiggy look like? The Senate had called for provision that barring the IEBC vice chairperson from taking up the role of chairman in case of a vacancy. It also held that the commissioners to be recruited should have at least 10 years' experience in the relevant fields, and also that the electoral body must have an accountant and ICT expert. The proposal was approved by the National Assembly. The Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs recommends approval of the Senate amendment. Read the report of the Senate on the bill. On the IEBC selection panel, both houses agreed on the need to expand the membership from the current 7 members of the selection panel to 9, with the panel consisting of 2 persons nominated by the Parliamentary Service Commission, read politicians, representing the majority and minority. It will also consist of 3 persons nominated by the Political Parties Liaison Committee. Okay, so in total, 5 of the 9 members will be politicians. I always say, this IBC, politicians should be far from the selection of the referee. They keep arguing, oh, but you see, we are the interested party. No, you're not. We, the people, are the interested party. We are the ones who are using the IEBC to just count our votes as we exercise our right, constitutional right, to delegate our authority to elected officials. So the most important person in an election is the voter. It's not the candidate. City.
Yes.
Tell us.
Well, you know, today is the day. There's a story here that I wanted to talk about. Not that of Ruto, not that of opulence. Right. Something that is of interest. The appeal court in Kisumu ruled, according to the rules, against Kenha in 8 million case. The Kenya National Highways Authority, Kenha, has lost an 8 million shilling case following a ruling by the Court of Appeal in Kisumu. The ruling denied Kenha application for an extension of time to file an appeal against a previous High Court decision that awarded a transport firm, the IMAX contractors, 8 million in damages. The case, initially adjudicated by Justice William Musyoka at the High Court in Kakamega, July 8, 2022, involved the IMAX's claims regarding the impounding of its vehicle registration details and prohibition of the prosecution of their driver over the allegations of excess load in Busia Way Bridge. The High Court had ruled in favor of the is it Telmax or the IMAX? Granting it Telmax, granting it general damages of 3 million and special damages of 5 million. Unaware of the judgments until August 20, 2022, Kenha filed a notice of appeal. On the same day, it applied for a stay of the High Court judgment, which was dismissed by the Court of Appeal on prejudicial grounds. Judge Helen Omodi of the Court of Appeal emphasized the procedural shortcomings of Kenha's application. Why I've chosen this story is we sometimes get caught up in everything else that is happening, and we forget that we actually have systems in this country which work. Every once in a while, people discuss and say, this hit and miss of our courts. But again, if you look at the details and just the abundance of issues that our court systems handle on a daily basis, when you read of such a case, this is against Kenha. Somebody had decided to take the law in their hands, from what I read here. Okay? They impound someone's vehicle, they do all sorts of crazy things because they think they can. But why this is important, where do you think Kenha is a government agency? Where do you think they get the gumption to have this level of impunity, where they think they can just do what they like? Where do you think? Every time the executive or the other arms of government make a decision which speaks and reeks of impunity, they set in motion that chain of events that leads to anybody who's within that chain thinking that they're at liberty to do what they like. Yes. So the people who actually break the law and who set in motion the process that we now see of ordinary citizens breaking the law are those who are in high office because they're the most visible. The things they do are in the light of the public. And even though the public may pretend they don't see it, they see it and they figure, well, if they can get away with it, so can I. Yes.
Shoo.
I tell you about the Kakamega.
Yeah. Why are you looking at me like that?
Because you're asking.
Okay, so I've asked. Ahead, go.
Okay. In the heart of Kakamega town is a street like no other. By day, it seems almost deserted. But when the sun sets, the day starts for Kanonawori Street. The street is located in the CBD of Kakamega town, and at 7 p.m., the street is impassable due to large numbers of people scrambling for various services. At the street, the first to awaken are small eateries. Their aromas of freshly brewed coffee, chapati, mandas, fried chicken, roast meat, beckoning customers. There are also shops that sell miraa and mugoka, bars and clubs, and money transfer services. It's packed to the brim with vehicles and sex workers lining up the streets. Tables spill out onto the sidewalk and the street is filled with laughter and conversations. As dawn approaches, the street gradually settles back into its daytime slumber. The music fades, the lights dim, the storefronts retreat behind their shutters, yet the magic of the night linger in the memories of those who wander the pathways, leaving behind a promise of another evening filled with endless possibilities. When you visit Kakamega, this is a tourist destination.
Tourist?
You've got to go and see this.
Let's go and see what's happening.
During the day, this street is just quiet and deserted.
And then at
night,
I think it's interesting. It's called Kanonawori Street.
It's called Kanonawori. Kanonawori should be like a man of the cloth, right?
Yes, he's
a canon in the Anglican Church, right?
Yes.
All right.
Wow.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
In the next hour, we host the president of the Law Society of Kenya. She'll be here to tell us how she has seen things unfolding in terms of upholding of the rule of law, constitutionalism in the country, and particularly those who are being abducted by agencies at night and then being released days later. What are they telling the LSK? It's 7 a.m. Good morning.
Spice up your life.
It's now 7 a.m. Get effective relief from strong pain with Panadol Extra. Panadol. Relief starts here.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The National Assembly will not convene an emergency session to discuss the 2024 finance bill brought back by President William Ruto. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, said that the matter will be discussed again in Parliament after the sessions resume on July 13th following the recess. However, Speaker Wetangula has submitted the bill to the Parliamentary Finance Committee headed by Molo Member of Parliament Kimani Kuria and informed it that it should be dealt with in accordance with the President's wishes. The committee will now hold special sessions to discuss the President's proposal and then submit its report to Parliament. This step means that Parliament has officially started the process of completely withdrawing the bill, which caused protest in the country due to high tax proposals as proposed by the President. Wednesday this week, President William Ruto announced that he would not assent to the bill, making it clear that Kenyans have rejected the bill. Now, the protest against the 2024 finance bill led to another debate about the creation of the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission, IEBC, to enable Kenyans carry out their role of holding their MPs accountable. Now, the National Council of Churches is pushing for the speeding up of the process of installing IEBC commissioners to give Kenyans the opportunity to file cases seeking to remove MPs who go against their wishes. And CCK Secretary General Chris Kinyanjui has expressed his disappointment on how the issue surrounding IEBC is taking long despite the law and guidelines on how IEBC is to be instituted.
Need to ask for IEBC to be reconstituted yesterday. That is the only way that we can be able to recall some of the MPs who supported the finance bill, yet the voters told them not to do that. There is no way an MP who is elected by voters can go and represent his own personal interest against the will of the people.
NCCK has also warned MPs against disapproving the wishes of the electorate, urging them to think about Kenyans and their well-being when debating and passing bills in Parliament. NCCK has announced guidelines aimed at controlling political activities in churches.
The churches have been infiltrated by politicians who are dishing out money and giving speeches from the altars. As NCCK, we have come up with guidelines for ministering to politicians when they come to church. For example, we don't want them to be allowed to speak inside the congregation or the church.
President William Ruto should have resigned over the anti-finance bill protest, says Siaya Governor James Orengo. Orengo says Ruto has failed to show leadership, noting that Kenyans have lost faith in his government.
Where we have reached, and if President Ruto was really listening to the people of Kenya, the voice of the people, because this is in Kenya, the whole of Kenya, he should have resigned, not just him, but his entire government should have resigned. And you know, there will be no vacuum, because if there is no president, if there is no deputy president, if there is no speaker, the Chief Justice can still take responsibility until the time we have an election.
Orengo is further accusing Ruto of insincerity, saying that the president has not apologized to Kenyans, even after proposing unpopular tax hikes.
If he was speaking truth to the nation, he should have told Kenya, the first thing he should have said, I am sorry, I brought about this law that was going to tax you, and because of that mistake that I made, and now I want to seek to amend the bill or bring it afresh. He said he has listened, people have died, he has not apologized for causing those deaths.
And An ODM legislator wants Parliament to dissolve and fresh polls called following the invasion of Parliament by protesters Tuesday. Nyeri Masaba MP Daniel Manduku says elected leaders are to blame for the chaos in the country over the now withdrawn Finance Bill 2024. Manduku says the widespread demonstrations over the bill are indicative of the significant loss of public trust in the Kenya Kwanza government and Parliament as a whole.
I want to state here that as elected leaders, we are the problem. And I want to ask the President to immediately dissolve the National Assembly and call for elections within 90 days. I know people will argue that there is no IEBC. But remember, we are party to many international treaties. They can ask the AU, that is African Union, the East African Community, or the UN to send 9 commissioners to oversee the elections.
Under Article 261(7 of the Constitution, the President has the authority to dissolve Parliament if it fails to fulfill the constitutional mandate. This is New to App Dennis Asada. Good morning.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
Okay, a few minutes after 7, the sun is up this morning. Let's take a look at what's happening on the streets. Let's take a look at the Thika Superhighway as you come through towards the Pangani Tunnel. That's where we'll see some traffic right about now. But again, nothing too crazy. Let's look at Uhuru Highway coming in from Mombasa Road out towards the Nyeri Stadium roundabout and then into the city and out towards Westlands. Not a thing here. All right, so yeah, again, for the first time in a couple of days is when we're seeing traffic coming in as people are getting out into the CBD. Jogo Road looks good. You'll get to the roundabout at the City Stadium and that's going to clog up just a little bit. Folks will go through towards Lusaka Road or out in the other direction through Landis. But Kamkunji, around that roundabout, Wakulima, so we're seeing some action there. But nothing too crazy. We'll get into it in a short while. We'll be here for it. Talk to us on SpiceFM. KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
7 minutes after 7. How are you doing? Welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation on this final Friday of June 2024. Next week, we're into July. New financial year. Christmas is end of next week. Like that. And you still haven't put money into Stanbic. You haven't opened a new account. You haven't deposited 50,000 shillings at least. So you're not going to be in the draw for end of this month. Unangoja nini? If you open that account today, a current account, a savings account, put money or transfer your home loan into them. 50,000 shillings is what you need minimum. And
then enter into a draw. So the weekly winners, 200,000, 100,000, 50,000. Those are for the week. Then at the end of it all, September, there is a grand draw. 1 million shillings, 500,000 shillings, 300,000 shillings. Just because you did what? Opened an account and put 50,000 shillings into it, right? So there's other things that also come along with you having this account with Stanbic. And one of them is that you can get this really nifty thing, which is a fixed 10% of 9.5. 9.5 for the term of your loan for home loan. So imagine that. Doesn't matter how long it is. Once you get in, it's fixed. It's 9.5%. That's what you're keeping. That's basically the bank saying, take this money, build a house, and then just give us the same money.
Up
basically.
to 25 years.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Many goodies come along with you being. And so, like, see, if you're one institution and you move over to Stanbic, they can just take up all your responsibility. Your loan, bring it, we'll take care of it. Your salary, we'll take care of it. Make sure all of that is sorted out. Just because you did what? You switched to Stanbic.
And in the Think Business Banking Awards, they were awarded the best lender in the market.
Yes.
Okay? So when it comes to, taking loans, they have some easy way of actually accessing a loan. You can do so from your mobile device. You just look and go into your app and you see how much do I qualify for? I need 20,000 shillings. They tell you actually you qualify for 50. Take the 20 and go and do what you want to do. And then you pay back. Mumble like that. Oh, at you bring your front teeth.
Your father's cow. The one that grew up with him.
They don't do those kind of things. They do not. So it's that. Switch
to Stanbic
and win. Showmax is also reminding you that because the Euros are going on, you can watch it from wherever you are on your mobile device. All matches from Germany live. And all you need to do is subscribe to the Showmax PL and you just download it. How do you download those apps?
So you can go to the website showmax.com or you can go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store.
Got it right.
Thank you very much. I'm on track. And you download any one of those and then you can just register. You get in, you register, you pay, you watch. Simple as that. There's some interesting matches happening this weekend as you get into the round of 16 next week. And let's just look at some of those as you get into it. Saturday matches happening then, and also Sunday matches happening between Switzerland and Italy, Germany and Denmark, England and Slovakia on Sunday, Spain and Georgia. Yes, Georgia is a country. And then getting on to the 1st of July, France and Belgium will play each other. Scintillating matches, and you can watch them from your mobile phone just because you paid 500 shillings. For the EPL.
Georgia Karangat, Portugal, my friend. It's a serious country. Panacheza.
They beat them.
Yes.
Yes. Proper.
Yes.
In this Euro Cup.
In this Euro.
That you've been talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
That's good. It's a good thing, isn't it?
Yes.
It is.
Our guest is in the studio. We are privileged to have with us this morning the President of Kenya, Law Society of Kenya.
I feel
Faith
that.
Odhiambo, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you.
I'm telling people who are watching us that yes, it's cold. Now you look at the president. It's called presidential dressing.
I'm telling you.
Warm. You've got to be warm.
Yeah.
You've been very, very busy the last couple of days, Faith.
Yeah.
You and several of your members. You're here so that you can tell us what this has been about, and also so we can learn the lessons. Rule of law, constitutionalism, the rights of the people, and also the responsibilities of everybody, including those in positions of government. To welcome you to this conversation, CT will give you the day's proverb. This week, the proverbs have been from the Islamic Republic of Mauritania.
Yes, and this is our final proverb for this week, and our final proverb from the Islamic Republic of Mauritania. What a child says, they have heard from home.
What a child says, they have heard from home.
I would say that charity starts at home. Most people are influenced by what their parents say, what their parents do, and or those who have given their caregivers from their nascent years. So the seeds that you plant to the young, your young ones, is what they're going to carry on. But I don't think that applies to the Gen Zs.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
You don't think what we were seeing this last couple of days is actually coming from what they see and hear from home?
You are hearing stories of people who are saying they are blocking their mothers and fathers because they're telling them, no, you can't do this, or you can't go to the streets. One said that his dad has told him, I can't. If you go to the streets, I will not bail you. In fact, one said, say hi to my dad. I'm sharing his number. So I don't think that is applying to the Gen Zs this time around. They're a new kind of crop, yeah.
They are completely defiant.
Yeah.
Is that really the case?
Well, maybe you could say the roots, they'll eventually cocoon somewhere, but I think there's a different kind of fire. It's a non-complacent fire. As much as parents, you've seen so many in conversations with their parents, and they're telling their parents, no, we are still going to the streets. irrespective of what you say, I'll still be there with everyone else. Yeah. In fact, some were saying you're the one who's gotten us to this problem, because you're part of the people who steal, or either you're part of the people who just accept. So we're not listening to you. Yeah.
Boy.
You should listen to those Twitter spaces.
Don't you think they've been
really
hearing
quite
our
fiery.
complaints? Yeah, we are complaining at home. It's
No,
just
but
that
they say you're
we've been feeling
complacent.
hopeless. But we've just been complaining, and that's why they were able to tell, we just see our parents here all the time. They're just complaining. Every day they come home.
Oh, this government.
What to? And they decided to do something about it.
Well, yes, I think listening to the complaints, but as well starting to feel the pinch directly as younger persons, because when they're saying that they want to work in their country, they don't want to go to school the way you're told, enda shule kijana, and then you will get a job. That's not the case in Kenya anymore. Your parents can sell everything, take you out of the country. You come back, you can't get an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so there's that clear realization of the challenges that they're having. The doctors had a strike, the intern doctors. And if doctors can't get work, can't get that sustainability, they're telling themselves, so which profession should you do in this country?
Yeah.
So I think slowly they started sparking that discussion, and it ended. The main problem is the finance bill.
Right.
So I in fact, looking at it, the history surrounding it, because I thought it was more of professionals talking about what it's going to mean for the different industries in the country. We gave our memorandum in Parliament, but slowly we saw on social media a storm brewing slowly, and I thought it would end on Twitter, but they proved everyone wrong when they ended up in the streets. Yeah.
Okay, this happened, and we started to see protests, and then we saw it very clearly also from your office and other representatives that first of all there was legal representation, and we saw that there was this widespread representation specifically at police stations. And then, of course, the LSK very, very emboldened and saying, you know what, we're going to start processing and we're going to start making sure that bail is available, up until the point whereby there was even the request for charges against protesters who had been arrested, for those charges to be dropped completely. Those are some of the things that you pushed for. Why was that? And how did that happen in that manner?
Well, when the protest started on Tuesday, I asked my counsel, we know what happens in police stations, the illegal detentions. And if we don't, we're not vigilant, then we're going to see things escalating out of hand. So we ensured from the very first day, on the very first Tuesday, because it was pretty much peaceful, that we divided ourselves. In fact, there were 3 main police stations that people were being taken to. So it was a bit quite easy to just quickly move and share out responsibilities and say, you're stationed here, you're stationed here, you're stationed here. And ensuring that we insisted, even irrespective of the first day. In fact, we were actually tear gassed at Central Police Station. And they refused. So the OCS says he's not dealing with anyone until about 6 p.m. So we said, don't worry, we're going to come back. So in fact, we came back and we were more in number. And we were able to insist until the process. We told them either you're charging these people or you're releasing them. There's nothing like the people don't have the right to protest. There's no charge known in law. As long as they were not destroying property, as long as they were not engaging in any criminal activities, then they ought to be released. So on the first day, we got pretty much everyone released on free board without any charge. The unfortunate thing is there are obviously some cat and mouse games, because later on, after we released the ones we got, others were brought later in the night. So we had to wake up again at the police stations very early in the morning. Well, so that went well on Monday and Wednesday. Then Thursday came and things even got more heated and escalated, and they think they are not keeping anyone, they aren't arresting anyone. And I remember on Thursday evening, we were particularly chased from Central Police Station, even because we were saying it's past 6. We are here at the police station. They don't want anyone at the gate. They don't want anyone at the vicinity. And we're like, well, we're not at the gate of Central Police Station. We're standing close to the University of Nairobi. So what is the problem? So they came like about armed 7 people. They're insisting we must leave. I said, we're not leaving. In fact, the more you insist that we are leaving is when we think that there's a sinister motive. So we hung around there till about 9:30. Then we left. Then we had later on, they brought in people in the night. So this systematic conduct of the National Police Service to try and detain people for long, instead of charging people if you believe they have actually committed a crime, is becoming a systematic problem in this country. Even as late as yesterday, my members were calling me that, it's around 7 p.m. We're being told we are not allowed to see anyone. We serve them with a court order saying we should be allowed to access and see those who have been arrested. But still they're defined that the OCS is not here, and so you're not allowed to come into the police station. I'm like, what have the laws come to an end in this country? That during demonstrations you're not allowed to get into police stations? And I find it quite even disappointing from the judiciary that they're not taking action against some of these police officers for contempt, because once a court order is issued, you must obey those court orders unless they have been set aside or they have been appealed upon. So with the police service and most of these police stations, I think it's just extra vigilance and persistence. I think that's the only way that we can avoid certain people being detained, because you find certain people disappear for days, then they'll turn out they were being hidden at one police station or another.
Those that were actually the word we've been using is abducted.
Yeah.
Because people come in the middle of the night and they pick you up with no communication at all. You have successfully managed to get several of them to be freed. What do they tell you? How does this abduction, what is the chronology of the abductions?
Well, one told me that they came to his house. They just pushed through the door. The first thing they did was ask, where is your laptop? He pointed where the laptop was.
So at what time do they come to the house?
In fact, one was during the day.
Daytime?
Yeah, most at night.
Okay.
But one was during the day. They came in, they said, where is your laptop?
Do they identify themselves?
No, they don't identify. It's only one. I think it's Frankie, that he was with a colleague or a relative in the office, and they identified themselves.
Right.
So that they have come looking for who they're from, this division of the police. And so then the next thing is they asked him for his phone. So he'd switched off. He immediately switched off his phone.
Yeah.
So they said, open your phone and give us the password. So he refused. So they started slapping him around and hitting him. And he still refused to do so. So the next thing he says, they grab one of his T-shirts. The girlfriend tries to take a picture of what's happening. They chase her out of the house. So they put a T-shirt around his head. They handcuff him. And he's taken out. The one for Frankie, they just picked him up. And
were they able to establish that they were police? Or they just established that they were armed? What was the...
they came fully armed. In fact, they came to his house in the very wee hours of the morning. So there are 8 people they say they tell you either open or we open and things will be worse for you.
So there's a threat.
Yes.
Open or.
Yes.
We shall break and.
Yes.
Okay.
So, in fact, he then just opens the door, but before he could say something, they put something over his head and they zip lock his hands. So then they put him out, then they go for the second person in the house, and they do the same and they pick them out. And, most of them cannot tell where they are. And, Dr. Austin's story, he was just from doing a blood drive. he was picked up the same way. He was with his brother. They pushed him into the car. When they noticed that 3 cars have come all of a sudden, they tried to run back where they were doing the blood drive, but they managed to catch him and they dragged him into the car, pushed him in, and they all drove off. So when they come out, most are visibly very shaken. In fact, Dr. Austin had been kept for just a few hours, but he was highly shaken. And the first day, he was not willing to speak to anyone.
Wow.
One, he decided to go to the village. He just said he needs a time out. He doesn't want to talk to anyone. He thinks he'll be safe when he's with his mother. So if they want to come and kill him, let them kill him with his mother. Yeah, so the saddest thing that I feel with all these abductions that are going on, and they are actually abductions, because if you're abducted for ransom, they would ask for a ransom. When we put the heat on in terms of making noise and creating awareness and demanding their release, they're thrown in either some forest somewhere along the road. It's crazy circumstances in how they get released. So the challenge is that I feel like we're going to a very dangerous era in our country because we have a history in this nation.
These kind of things have happened before.
They have happened
I'm still interested to hear, because you're saying, for example, one person was just kept for a few hours. They come out, they don't have any visible physical injury.
In fact, for all of them, there is no visible
physical injury, none at all.
Yeah.
But they are so traumatized that they do not want to speak.
Yeah.
Later, when they begin to speak, do they give any indication of what was going on during that time?
Well, some give bits. Some say, there are these threats that they say that, do we do for him the way we did for a different person and finish him and throw him at the kahawa trees there, or this one, do we torture or do what? So it's veiled threats that keep building. And some tell him, you should be careful because the main boss, when he comes, it means something different. So if I was
we are the good guys.
Yeah, you'd rather cooperate and, creating fear.
Right.
Because these are quite young people, and I don't think they know or feel the Moi era or what it was. So it's just instilling that sense of fear that we can harm you, we can maim you, we can do things to you.
But what questions are they asking of them? What are they asking them?
Around who are your friends, what do you hang out, what's your involvement in all this, what was going on for the euphoria, what contribution have you made, where are you getting your sources of finances and things like that. So it's mainly around trying to get where they were getting the funding from, who are your supporters, who do you communicate with, who is giving you this kind of ideas and things like that.
But all of them, Faith, at the end of the day, when they're released from a police station.
No.
Where are they released?
I told you, like you had Dr. Austin, he was thrown out of a truck somewhere. One was found at Kijabe, is it Kijabe or somewhere, some forest? Some 2 were thrown in some place outskirts of Karen. It's only one who was released yesterday. He was found at a police station in Thika. In fact, hardly are they found at police station. So they're thrown at the side of the road. I remember one of them, she was dropped somewhere in Parklands, and I think maybe the fear or shock, she was so confused, yet she knows she's in Parklands, but she's petrified.
She doesn't exactly know what to do
bearings,
next.
Yes.
So there's something that's happening to them when they've been abducted.
Yeah.
And there's something that's happening of a psychological nature, so much so that when they come out, they're not willing to speak and they're scared to the bone. I mean, yeah, we witnessed this yesterday with one, that we wanted to be able to speak to today. And his words to me were, absolutely not. I will not do another media conversation after what happened. So, it's clear that something is going on.
Yeah.
But the question comes out here from a legal point of view, who then polices? Because, the assumption is that this is police.
The assumption that it is indeed police, because as we raised the noise, they eventually released. And You see, the problem is you don't know which section of the police is doing it. Is it the National Police Service? Is it the DCI? Is it, as the Deputy President was saying, the NIS? So, or is it the ATPU? You really don't know which police service it is, because most of them say their heads were covered the entire time. Throughout.
So they never even saw.
They didn't
the
see,
people that were interrogating them.
They would describe, some were put on a bed, some were made to sit somewhere, some were on a cold floor. So no one really knows where they were. So there's no tracing to say. So that's why it can only be a command responsibility in this country, because as these abductions are happening, we have our cabinet secretaries in charge of, they're in charge of to ensure that the security. We have the National Police Service Inspector General, who is in charge of all these units. So we hold command responsibility, because ideally they cannot tell us where they were. You know, the funny thing, like Nyayo torture chambers, it was right under where everyone is moving in and out and is so busy. You couldn't even believe that there are torture chambers right there.
2 days ago, it was the International Day on torture victims, basically just highlighting the plight of people who are tortured. And of course, what these people have gone through is torture. And this country has ratified a protocol, UN protocols on torture. There are laws on torture. Some of them have not been operationalized. We've heard about this. But then we heard from the president saying that under my administration, we are not going to have this kind of extrajudicial killings and police operations. So then there's a disconnect. Because on the one hand, the president is saying, not on my watch can there be something like this happening. And as he's saying that, there are people who are actually going through this.
You know, it's quite dishonest, because even in his second speech, which was much better than the first one, he says that there are only 6 people who have died. And people can attest the large number of people who have died, and he's not apologetic. He says they will, they'll be
accounted for.
They'll be accounted. What does accounted for mean? And, the killings have continued post his speech. So how do you tell people or expect the citizens to trust you, yet the killings are still going on?
Let's take a break. It's 28 minutes to 8. The president of the Law Society of Kenya, Faith Odhiambo, is our guest this morning. The Law Society has been very, very active in this protest that we've seen so far in the country, in terms of just coming to support those that have been arrested, those that have been taken to police stations, those that have disappeared without a trace, and just working so hard at trying to trace them and giving them the support that they require. They still, I'm sure, these people need a lot of psychosocial support. We need to find out, are they getting it? Do they have access to it? And so on and so forth. Roy Sambu, the Aga Khan University Hospital has a new center there.
The Aga Khan University Hospital believes that world-class care, shouldn't have to travel too far for it. It should be brought to where you live and where you work. And so there's a new specialty care center that has been opened right on the Roy Sambu roundabout at Jewel Plaza. And you can actually get the world-class care that you need, right? So many services available, from chemotherapy to dialysis, endoscopy, all heralded by some of your best specialists. Oncologists, gastroenterologists are there, general surgeons are there, and also internal medicine specialists, all there to deliver this care that you look for. And all on board throughout the day, close to you. The Aga Khan University Hospital believes in universal care here and now.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The weather with SpiceFM.
A bit of a sunny morning in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 23, 21 and lows of 10 today. It's mostly sunny at 13, going to highs of 23 in Nakuru. And at 11 in Nyeri, it'll go to highs of 21. It's 14 and cloudy in Eldoret, highs of 23, and Mombasa at 22 is sunny, highs of 29. 29 will be the high in a mostly sunny Malindi at 24. It's 19 and cloudy in Kisumu, highs of 29, while at 17 it's cloudy in Kakamega with highs of 27. 21 and cloudy in Kampala, going to highs of 26, and we'll see highs of 29 in a partly sunny Dar es Salaam at 24. 5 degrees and temperatures dropping in Johannesburg, going to highs of 17, and we'll see highs of 28 in a cloudy Mogadishu at 24. It's 14 and cloudy in Addis Ababa, highs of 20, and we'll see highs of 30 in a partly cloudy Lagos at 26. It's 20 and clear in Kinshasa. We'll see highs of 32.
Chilled Spice.
All right, getting into traffic hour as would be the time right now. Let's take a look at what's happening on the Thika Superhighway. Not too badly, actually. Just some traffic coming in from Survey through towards the tunnel, and that's bumper to bumper. Kiambu Road, not too bad, but we're looking at Muthaiga where folks trying to get away from that tunnel, but you're going to get there anyway. So traffic is busy there. Globe Cinema, whatever was happening roundabout, that seems to be dwindling as well. As you're coming off of James Gishuru, you're fine over the drift and through towards Waiaki. We're crossing over towards Red Hill. Let's see how that loop comes onto Limuru Road, and not much happening there. Okay, so keeping an eye on things through the morning. It's busy right around Kamkunji, but I think that's probably the busiest it'll be, at least for this morning. Let's talk through it. SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This democratic country that's governed by the rule of law, and the law is very clear. The lawyer, the president of the lawyers of the country is here. She's Faith Odhiambo, president of the Law Society of Kenya. We are talking about that, the rule of law, constitutionalism, and the place of that, the citizens versus those that govern them. And what you just described from what you've seen as you go to try and represent people who have been arrested because of participating in the protests, as you go to help secure the release of those that have been abducted, and what you see and hear from them as you speak to them and you try to debrief them, and they are clearly traumatized, they have clearly been tortured, and then you look at the conversation that's coming from the government. Let's start with the Ministry for Interior. Then going to the IG of police and the command of police. Do you hear anything of them acknowledging that they've done something wrong?
There's absolutely no acknowledgement. In fact, the last statement that CS Kindiki made, he was trying to illegally curtail the constitutional rights to picket. And that's all he spoke about, warning people. The IG, I think he has played a disappearing act. I don't remember listening to him saying anything. The head of state talks about, yes, people have died, but he's aware of 6 people. You know, the reality is, if we want to move this country to the next level and way forward to reconciliation, it must start with the justice of these victims. We cannot say that we're sweeping under the carpet. People being shot point blank, people who are not armed, they are with their water bottles. There's so much pictorial. And the same killer cop yesterday you saw shooting at journalists because they were taking his picture. He shoots a tear gas cannon at close range, and he does it in a callous way, like, I'm showing you I have power. And the fact that no action has been taken against him to date, irrespective of the president talking quite diplomatic. In fact, I was hearing some of the spaces, people were saying the first speech was for us Kenyans, the second one was for the international community. So there's totally mistrust with the current government, and because they speak one way and do something different, that's why Kenyans still do not believe, and that's why they were on the streets yesterday, and that's why they are planning again to come back on the streets, irrespective of the Kenya Defence Forces being deployed. Kenyans are saying that they are not going to relent because they do not trust the powers that be. that they will uphold the promises because they still see the bloodshed and they say you won't kill us all. So we'll keep coming.
Are you saying, Madam President, that what we're seeing is there was an existing dissatisfaction either with the government or with the president or with parliament or with the government? Because government, we forget, is executive, it's parliament, and it is the judiciary.
Let me tell you this. There is an existing disappointment with government. I would say that first with the executive, the kind of policies that they're churning out that are exclusionary. Look at the healthcare policies. Look at how the education has gone down the drain. And these are things, tangible issues that the Gen Zs were talking about. They're talking about the experience, how their parents are struggling. They would want government to actually supplement education so that their struggling parents don't have to struggle. And this is the country that their parents are being heavily taxed. They're talking about SHIF and how, payments have come up, yet services have reduced, that the government is out to just make money. Even right at the heart of when all the satisfaction, the CS announces that cancer screening will only be for over 55. Cancer comes at every age. We've had cases of people in their 20s getting cancer.
Children get cancer.
Yeah, children get cancer. So if you're saying that only over 55 will access cancer screening, what are you telling then? Everyone should look for a private cover, yet pay higher health services. They're talking about how the economy cannot work. Even people who are trying to set up businesses, a lot of them are making money on the online platform. So when government wants to lodge heavier taxes on that, so meaning they'll make almost nothing because most are unemployed. So this is their hope that they can launch themselves, because in other countries they're able to have multi-million dollar industry develop. But the problem, the kind of policies that government is executive is giving is killing the nascent industries, yet going out to welcome other industries to come. You give them tax haven of 5 years. 5 years comes, they've left the country. Yet the very internal industries that are supposed to go are struggling and closing down. Let's go to Parliament. Parliament, I think, is the greatest disappointment. This is the worst Parliament in... We're not even 2 years yet. I've never seen a more callous, irresponsible parliament than we have than this one, who are not reading. They dare tell the people that the bill was as big as a Bible. How can I read all of that? They asked questions. They do not understand even the subject of what you're talking about, yet you're supposed to sit in parliament. We have members of parliament who only appear to vote once or twice in a year on very serious government bills. Yes, people, we have never seen in history the head of state calling parliament to agree on things. Then you see the latter being announced in parliament. Even when they were agreeing on some of the concessions before the rejection of the finance bill, it was done at state. It was done together as a party. Then it was announced in parliament. This is highly irresponsible, showing there's no independent parliament. We have sponges who take orders and execute. I'm sorry to say this is the most irresponsible parliament that is not representing the people of Kenya. None are listening, and that's why when they're going back home, you're seeing the kind of retaliation. They're being chased out from their chamas, they're being chased out from their constituencies, because people are still angry that you are putting a deaf ear to the pleas and cries, to the judiciary. We still have irresponsible judges and corrupt judges and magistrates. For LSK, that war is still coming for corruption. So they should not think that we are not coming for them. We are coming for them. Let's deal with the issues that we're having right now. But if you have judges and magistrates that do not see the challenges that are there, and I thank the criminal division, they sat through long hours to listen and hear till almost 11 p.m. some of the accused persons that were purposely brought late by the OCS in Central Police Station. And, that kind of frustration. But irrespective of that, the judges, the clerks, they sat through the night to ensure that all those matters were heard and issued orders and signed those orders. So I commend that work that they did and the sacrifice they are making for Kenyans. But as long as we still have bad apples, I'm still challenging the Chief Justice. She must either shape up or shape out, because it is quite important that people should start believing in institutions. If people are losing hope even in the judiciary, then people will go back to the streets. Because if people at this particular plight already showing for a finance bill, they are ready to die. I remember one of the ladies in a church, she said she'd rather die standing than live on her knees. These are strong statements coming from our younger generation. So if people don't believe that courts can give them justice, people will go and get their own justice. And this is a wake-up call, particularly to the judiciary, that when the next election comes, if they do not shape and put their act together, no one will be coming to file petitions. People will be on the streets fighting. And so we need to regain that trust in the judiciary.
Well, you took something else to the judiciary, and that was basically asking the court to hold or to stay the order on asking that KDF be deployed. What was the reasoning? What was the rationale behind that?
Well, the judge, which we respect his decision, and I respectfully disagree, that his position was that what happened on Tuesday amounted to an emergency because the office of the Chief Justice was broken into the Supreme Court and as well as Parliament. So that necessitated an emergency. And irrespective of bringing out the fact that constitutional elements were not met, he proceeds to give them leeway to go and gazette a new gazette and also give guidelines, and that he will leave the file open. You know, if you felt the mood even of people in that in that forum, over 1,000 Kenyans were filled to the brim watching that decision. And first of all, the decision kept being pulled back, bringing again that anxiety when people are saying phone calls are being received. So the thing of pushing the ruling then from one link to another, in fact, I was not able to enter the final link because there was no access. But the fact is that the rumor that we are waiting for your decision and people are dying. People are being killed, and yet you're sitting pretty, we are waiting for your decision. And so I think the judiciary needs a wake-up call. And I remember something stuck that the judge said, that on one hand is protection of life and property, on the other hand is the right to picket. And I asked myself, I wanted to stop him and ask, which life are you talking about? Are people shooting each other? Are protesters shooting each other? Are protesters launching tear gas canisters against each other? So you can't tell me that the police and the Kenya Defence Forces are protecting life. They're actually the ones taking life. So if those are part of your thinking and parameters, then I'm sorry. And as much as I may respectfully disagree, it's the decision of the court and we have to abide by it. But I see that it's like our courts are also living in a different world, as opposed to the world that people are living in. And maybe when it happens to one of their people is when it will hit home that you need to protect. And I say this is a very dangerous precedent that is setting, that when the government deems that something has happened, that it's an emergency, then they can deploy and everything can be, the rest, the legal issues can follow after.
Follow later. What was the main contention? What was LSK's contention? And I still feel that you still have the same contention.
You see, our contention was that before you deploy, there are procedures that you ought to follow. They ought to have come under Article 241(3)(c). And that is what they tried to do after the fact.
What does it say?
Well, Article 42(3)(1)(c) talks about before deployment, you have to go to Parliament for approval, and after, in fact, there's a declaration by the CS. There's an imminent issue. There's a mutiny or there's an unrest that needs to be dealt with. 2, you go to Parliament for approval. Parliament gives you parameters, and you report regularly to Parliament. What we have is a carte blanche that the army has. They can go anywhere in the country anytime. There's no limitation. Secondly, you do not know how many have been deployed and what are their ranks, what are their terms of reference. All of those things are not known, and how they will be reporting to Parliament. What we saw was parliamentarians rushing and approving in 30 minutes, and it wasn't even a full house. It's like the executive agreed, we're going to do this, so make sure you're here by this time, record time, that is.
So there was an emergency?
According to the courts, there was an emergency. And, you know, our argument was that this cannot be construed as an emergency. A country that has all the apparatus of security would be able to see the escalation that was growing, unless this was purposely organized to ensure, let things happen so that they can deploy the army. Because you can't tell me it was a surprise to all these security agencies that we're having in this nation.
Actually, I tend to agree with that judge. There was an emergency, but I think he missed a step. The emergency was when the power of the citizenry was usurped by Parliament. When they were being told, and the public was outside the doors of Parliament saying, we don't want this bill, and they proceeded to pass it. That was the emergency. And the deployment should have taken place, but the deployment should have been policemen going to arrest the members of Parliament, because they had clearly broken the law. The sovereign had spoken. The sovereign had said, but they completely ignored what their bosses were saying, contrary to the law. So yes, we understand the judgment, but that particular justice missed the point. The focus should have been on the legislators who decided to ignore, because it's the ignoring of what their bosses were telling them, the sovereign was telling them, that has put us in this uncomfortable position we find ourselves in right now.
Are the right words emergency or unrest? Because even the part of the Constitution that we are quoting here, 241 3C, is that the defense forces may be deployed to restore peace in any part of Kenya if affected by unrest or instability, only with the approval of the National Assembly.
So what they did is that they came under B, saying that it's an emergency. There are two terms. So they came under emergency, that this was an emergency.
So B says, let me just read B, that the defense forces shall assist and cooperate with other authorities in situations of emergency or disaster and report to the National Assembly whenever deployed in such circumstances.
You see, if you're reporting to the National Assembly, meaning there ought to have been an oversight. And to get that oversight, you must seek approval. So everything was done after the fact. So they were deployed. So according to the learned judge's reasoning, that at that particular point, there was an emergency and there was need to immediately deploy, and then the rest could follow. And that's why I say it's a very dangerous precedent, because it means that this can be whipped out every time, that this is an emergency, this is an unrest, and we have judicial precedent agreeing with us. So you're setting a very dangerous precedent that can be used continuously, and we can have a state that is ruling the nation by use of fear, using the army. You know, seeing the kind of the army trucks that was on the streets yesterday, I'm like, is this a movie that we're watching next to? You're seeing University of Nairobi, they're there in the heart of the city center, they're there. Even if you have so much bravery, man, seeing someone in a tank that they have machine gun this side and the other side, there's so much braveness that someone can express.
Where does it lead? And I think this is the question for a lot of folks who wake up today. And this is right here, who wake up today and have lost loved ones. Yesterday, I mean, it breaks my heart into 1,000 pieces that we see children
being shot.
And of course, we still do not know the exact details of what occurred in Githurai night before last. We don't know what happened. But where does it all lead when folks are asking for legal redress, where folks are asking for what kind of prosecution will take place? We know for a fact that those who were killed the other day were killed by police. Where does it all lead? From a legal point of view, what can be done? Where do you go? Who do you ask and say, my child has been killed, what did they do? Where do we go from a legal point of view in this country where things just seem to be floating in the air? Nothing is landed right now.
Well, what we want to do is try and collect data of all these people who lost their loved ones, and we will table the same before IPOA and also demand that the Director of Public Prosecutions ensures investigations are done. The same zeal that is issuing charges on protesters is the same zeal he should use to proffer charges to the rogue policemen. So that is an expectation that will charge upon him on behalf of the people of Kenya, and we will expect him to exercise the same vigor and to ensure that justice is done to these families. Under my watch as LSK, we will not allow these victims to be swept away. We have seen previous mandamanos where people's issues are swept away. No one is talking about. You see, Baby Pendo only became a big issue because FIDA Kenya took it up. They prosecuted the police officers and further sued the state for compensation of the victims. And I hope, because the head of state said that they would account, that we will not need to go to court to ensure that the compensation are done for the victims that have suffered. So many are in hospitals. You know, yesterday it broke my heart to see it. Was it in Rongai? A child or two are shot. Some, you know, seeing, I don't know if it was a father or family member, they're all sitting in a piki trying to rush this child to hospital, and the child was shot, I think, how many times at the back?
Yeah.
You know, there are things that are unexplainable.
Too far. Is there any avenue, Faith, for accountability or demand for accountability legally from the National Police Service as an institution, from the Cabinet Secretary in charge of Interior as an office, over what we saw? The fact that there were police officers who used live ammunition.
You know, we've even done a letter of complaint.
Is there anything that can you prosecute that and say they actually went against what's expected of them in the law?
Yeah. We'll be filing a suit on command responsibility on all the seniors who are in charge and command, because most of these policemen take orders from above. They would not shoot to kill if they have not been given orders to shoot to kill, because we have seen that consistently developing. So those must be orders that they have been given. And if they're saying they're rogue, then they should proffer them for prosecution. So if the DPP refuses, then we can try and launch private prosecution, but we will still sue for compensation for those victims, because what has happened is a painful experience. And my question even is, as we go along, what next? Because the grievances are still there. The reason why people are still gathering to go to the streets is because they feel they're still being ignored. Yes, the finance bill is the first step, but they still feel there are underlying issues that need to be dealt with, that need to be tabled. And the problem is, after these abductions, most people are not comfortable coming to sit down, because they feel that after that you shall be marked. And the next thing, you'll be also, people will be looking for you everywhere. So we need to start having a change, and that change can only happen when you first have justice for these victims. Then
now that the police are denying that they did not abduct anyone. So how can we seek justice for victims of torture?
You know, the ones who are able to come out, then we'll ask them we file petitions and seek redress, because indeed they were abducted. The kind of harrowing experiences they had can only be done by the police. And the fact that they were returned unarmed, some with warnings and instructions, some frightening them to either disappear, that's a very clear show that indeed it was by the police. So we will sue for the ones who are ready to come out, because the challenge is most are not willing, and you need someone to support an application saying this is what they went through. This is how their constitutional rights were violated, and hopefully the courts to make a declaration to avoid this happening again. And maybe if the courts are more proactive and take a very clear and hard stance, then we'll be able to see some level of progress of protection of the Bill of Rights in this country.
As you're taking all these action, are you doing this pro bono?
Yes.
Is the Law Society just doing this?
This is
for public
totally
goods?
pro bono. In fact, the painful part sometimes is that you have to try and fundraise because, you know, the victims that were arrested, in fact, the 56, they don't have money to pay their bail.
Yeah.
So you end up now reaching further into your pocket to ensure that you set them free because you don't want them staying in the cells for another day, another night. Yeah.
Faith, we thank you and the Law Society of Kenya for all that you've done. And we expect that you shall continue doing the same.
Yes,
Asante
our
for
service
joining
to
us
the
today.
country.
Asante sana. Faith Odhiambo is the president of the Law Society of Kenya. She's been here. We've been talking about, the rule of law, the place of the rule of law, the citizens and how the government responds to their citizens. In the next hour, we host activist Boniface Mwangi. He'll be here to tell us the lessons learned here, the ups, the downs, and the way forward as the agitation continues. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Jubilee Insurance reminds you that if you haven't, taken up insurance, health insurance, and you're thinking of health insurance, they've got the best. They have the experience. They have the widest network of healthcare providers, 700 facilities across the country. Think healthcare, think Jubilee Health.
Spice up your life.
It's now 8 a.m. Get effective relief from strong pain with Panadol Extra. Panadol. Relief starts here.
Good morning. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. Kakamega Governor Fernandez Baraza has announced that his government will pay for the funeral of one of the protesters who was allegedly killed by police officers in Kakamega County during the protest. Speaking at the Kakamega Referral Hospital after visiting those that were injured, Baraza also said that his government will pay for the transportation cost of another protester, Okoh, who will be buried at their home in Kisumu County. In addition, Baraza has announced that he will clear the cost of injuries of two and others who continue to be treated in the hospitals.
We've lost lives. I've just confirmed that we lost two people. That 5-year-old Mama Mboga, she's called Caroline Ashiramba from Ikolomani. We also lost a young man from Kisumu. For the family and friends of our dear loved ones, I want to convey my message of condolence to them and to assure them that we are going to take care, especially for our Ikolomani lady, who was one of our Mama Mbogas, Caroline Ashiramba. As a county, we are going to take care of the funeral expenses.
At the same time, Baraza has accused the police of using excessive force against the anti-finance bill protesters.
I really want to condemn the police for using excessive force because these two young people who are simply demonstrating peacefully, save for the unruly guys who joined them. As a county, of course, we also lost property. Properties were destroyed. Around 18 vehicles were destroyed. Some of them were burned to ashes.
Nambere North Member of Parliament Geoffrey Ruka has resolved to withdraw a proposed law he has sponsored seeking to have the government regulate public demonstrations and protest. The Assembly and Demonstration Bill 2024 seeks to spell out the conduct of an assembly or demonstration and outline prohibitions during the event. These include imposing conditions relating to public order, safety and protection of freedom of persons. And musician turned activist Kasmuel, known by his stage name as Kaskazini, has been found unharmed after reportedly being abducted by police following anti-finance bill protest in Nairobi. Kaskazini, an alumni of Alliance Boys High School, was reported missing on Tuesday, June 25th. He was last seen within Nairobi's Central Business District. Before his disappearance, he had emerged as a stalwart activist during the demonstrations, rallying Gen Z protesters to vehemently oppose the now rescinded finance bill. Meanwhile, the fierce clashes were witnessed at Multimedia University and Rongai after thugs pretending to be protesters attacked shops in the Masai Lodge area. 2 people are said to have been killed, several shops vandalized, and passengers using the Magadi road robbed. Thugs also invaded the supermarket there, but were beaten up by a mob. Several cases of looting were also reported along the old airport road in Embakasi. Internationally, and the Republican lawmaker who leads the House Armed Services Committee has written to the Biden administration formally demanding it shut down its aid pyre off the coast of Gaza, calling the operation ineffective, risky, and waste of money. The offshore floating pyre, announced by Biden in March as a response to the threat of famine in the Gaza Strip, was constructed off the coast of the enclave by the U.S. military as a way to bring food and other aid supplies. The U.S. military has been authorized to operate it until the end of July, but a U.S. Agency of International Development official said this week that the administration could seek to extend it for at least another month. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky attended a European Union summit in Brussels, where he thanked EU members for the long-term security agreement they were expected to sign and urged delivery of promised packages of military aid. During a press availability with the European Council President Charles Michel, Zelensky expressed gratitude for the promised military aid, but added that Ukraine's battlefield needs urgent, especially air defenses. He also thanked the EU and a group of 7 nations for their pledge to use roughly $50 billion in frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine's war effort. This is News. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, so now is when we're seeing a little bit of traffic coming into the city on Jogo Road, coming past the station out towards Landis. Landis is just a bit busy as you get to the Kamkunji roundabout, but I think after that, I'm not going to have too much of an issue. It's building, interestingly enough, on the Thika Superhighway, and that's pretty heavy as you get towards the underpass. And then now we're seeing traffic starting to build on Wangari Maathai, and it's going to take us out into the CBD real quick. Juja Road is also very busy in and outbound traffic, interestingly enough, and you're getting towards Uhuru Highway. If you're coming from the Nairobi Stadium roundabout, I guess today is the day that folks are out and about doing what they need to do. James Gishero busy crossing over towards Wayaki Way, and Uhuru Highway will take on some of that as you get into the CBD. Let's keep an eye on things, guys, and talk on SpiceFM, KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Aga Khan University Hospital reminds you that they have got a new center. It's a specialist care center in Roysambu. What do you get there?
What you get there, you get all kinds of specialty care. We're talking about endoscopy, dialysis, chemotherapy, surgery, general surgery. That all happens at the Aga Khan, at the Roysambu Specialty Care Center. It's located at Jewel Plaza, all coming from the belief that, you know what, you shouldn't have to travel too far from where you work or where you live to be able to get this care. And so they've set up that center, and you can actually go in and be treated by a host of specialists, from endocrinologists and oncologists, surgeons, and internal medicine specialists. You can do that really from the comfort of where you live and from the comfort of where you work. Aga Khan University Hospital believes that world-class healthcare is here, and it is now.
And it's one of the 700 plus health facilities that accept the Jubilee Health Insurance as insurance. If you go to them and you've got Jubilee Health Insurance, you are going to get covered. Jubilee Health have a product called J-Care. 6 levels of products on the J-Care. There is one that sorts starts out family, individuals, children, JK Junior, there's the JK Senior, and it takes out of even the senior members of our society. And all of them are giving you very, very good cover for inpatient, outpatient, up to 10 million shillings cover. And with, well, premiums that only go up to 350,000 shillings or so per year. That is some very good cover, especially knowing that you'll be able to use it in very many health facilities across the country. And if there's need for you to go abroad, they also have international cover that you can go for specialized care in outside of the country. This is Jubilee Health Insurance. The number to call them, CT?
Is 0709 949 000.
0709
949 000.
Yes. That's it. That's all you need to remember all the time. Our next guest is in the studio. His name is Boniface Mwangi. What he does for a living, who knows?
I sell land. You want to buy land?
Sell land.
I sell land.
He's a land buying and land selling company all by himself. But he's also an active citizen of this republic. Boniface, good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Very well.
Yeah.
Good to see you here. Good to see you well.
I wish I was happy. I was back here on happy times.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's always a pleasure to have you at whatever time. And this is actually also a very important juncture in the history of the democratization of this country. So it's a good moment as well.
True.
City is going to welcome you with the day's proverb. Before he does that, people are watching the Euros as they're going on in Germany. Okay?
Yes.
And Showmax says you can actually watch Euros on your mobile device. All you need to do is subscribe to Showmax PL, 500 shillings per month, and you watch all the games live, plus the pre-match and post-match analysis, plus other shows that they're preparing specifically on the Euros. They're looking at all the teams that are playing, the history of these games, the history of the countries, the teams, how they've performed in previous tournaments, and all this. 500 shillings only, Showmax PL. What do you do to get it?
Download the app, Google Play Store, Apple App Store. Download it, register, pay, watch. You're good.
And enjoy.
Showmax. Nice, but I'm pia Showmax wafanya the same deal kwa TV. Because I have Showmax on my phone, but I want it on my TV for the same deal.
The same one? Same 5 sock?
Hata kama ni IG, but nione kwa TV.
Sawa. You can actually watch Showmax on your TV. Just
no. The games. They don't allow that.
City, patia huyu jamaa proverb ya wiki.
Mimi nimekuja na yangu bro.
Wacha tusikie yako ni mgeni bwana.
Nimekam na yangu nimesema
hiyo proverb.
You have a proverb.
I have a proverb for the day, man.
Okay.
The child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth.
The child who is not embraced by the village
will burn it
down to feel its warmth.
Tafsiri.
Well, there's similarity here because the proverb from Mauritania is what a child says they have heard from home. So we were synced.
Kabisa.
We were of a similar mind.
You're saying the same thing?
Yes, we were.
Okay. How do you interpret Bonnie's proverb?
If a child sees no value in that home, burning it to ashes is of no consequence to them. Yes. People don't burn things they value. No. If they see no value, it's very easy to burn it. Because you actually have no connection with it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, there's the other side of probably it's talking to the village. If you do not offer warmth to this child, the child will look for warmth, and the child will burn down the village in pursuit of the warmth. So this is both sides. Yeah. Okay. Now you interpret City's proverb.
What was the proverb again?
Right. What the proverb was again? What a child says they have heard from home.
It's true. It's monkey see, monkey do. So they have seen it before. They're going to do it. Yeah. I think if you look at the Gen Zs, they've seen some of us protest. Now they're doing it. Yeah.
You think they're copying what they have been seeing and hearing from home?
No, they're actually doing it in a smarter way.
Right.
They don't want violence. They understand the Constitution, Article 37 of the Constitution. They're cool kids. They mobilize themselves. Excuse me. like in the past where you could actually maybe try to do an event, or if it's an event to pay people to come and transport them. These kids, no. They couple, they come together, they take matatus, they walk, and they come because they're committed. They have a bigger picture of this country than we do have. So I see the similarity that they learn from our mistakes, they learn from our fears, and they came back fearless, saying, we want better.
They have iterated. But first, you've organized demos before.
Yes.
Right? And just like you've mentioned here briefly, when you're organizing a demo, you've got to think end to end, including the logistics of how this demo will take place. This one, people have just been dumbfounded and wondering, okay, so how did this begin? How did it begin? I'm sure you've sat down and asked yourself and tried to trace the steps back. How did this particular Gen Z protest begin?
So there's no one source of beginning. There's excuse me, sorry. So this is what actually happens. Members of parliament say they're going to pass the bill, whatever happens. People go online very, very upset. And David D calls Kenyans digital wankers. That particular day, I was at a funeral at Langata Cemetery, Jambi Koikai's funeral.
Yeah.
And I was with a colleague of mine, and we were going to cover the funeral. And I said, you know what? So they're actually covering how the state of Langata Cemetery, because it's full.
Yeah.
So we said, let's go there to bury Jambi and do a story about the cemetery.
And also highlight
the state of the cemetery. It was full like 20 years ago. So we're there, and I scroll online, and I see that you're being called digital wankers. And I'm like, dude, we're not digital wankers. We can do more than that. So tell my colleagues, you're going to go to Parliament and do a video. So I go to Parliament, and you do a video called Occupy Parliament, and say, we're going to come and occupy this Parliament next week. And you put the video online, 1 million+ views on TikTok, and people pick it up and say, we own this idea. So it moves from me say, let's occupy Parliament, to everyone says we're going to reject this finance bill in totality. Before the beginning was, there are elements of the bill that we don't want. But it became, you know what, this thing, don't even amend it, we reject it. So the following week, you say, you know what, we call guys in the say, what can we do? What you normally do, you design placards, say guys are going to show up, but people actually send themselves. You tell them, come with a placard, come with everything. So it moves from being one team's idea to everyone's idea. So it's owned by everyone. We notify the police and said, on Tuesday, we're going to go there. And we go there on Tuesday. There are many people. The police come as usual, tear gas. You say, we're going to go back on Thursday. Then you go back on Thursday. Then you say, we're going to go back the following week. At every single juncture, we let the police know we're going back, and you're going to be many. But what they decide to do, you know, the state hasn't changed its tactics. So week one, that's when the abduction started. People get arrested. Then Law Society of Kenya, Faith Odhiambo, man, I'm a big fan. I think she's a patriot, and I think she's the best so far under the new constitution dispensation. So the police do what they normally do. They arrest hundreds of people, like 400 people are taken to Central, Kamkunji, all over. The lawyers go, LSK fights for them, some are taken to court, and the court acquits. So this boldens with the people to go back to the streets. Now, the following week, which is this week now, politicians realize they're losing the narrative. And what do politicians do every time? They hire goons. But before the goons were hired, 2 days earlier, we told the police, we went online and said, they're planning to destroy the city. They're planning to come and mess the city. Because we had 2 previous protests the previous week. Not a single injury, not a single destruction. I have a picture that I'm going to share today of a lady whose car back window was broken by the police with a tear gas grenade outside Family Basilica. People covered the car with matawi. Like they took leaves, covered the car, and waited for the lady to come so she could drive the car home safely without any loss. That last week on Thursday, and even that Tuesday, people walked home safely. No muggings, not a single robbery reported, no shop destroyed, nothing like that happens. Come this week on Tuesday, the narrative changes. The ground is changing softly, like the ground is changing, and the idea is to actually occupy Parliament. That was the idea.
What does occupy Parliament mean? Enter Parliament or
we'll
be outside
Parliament?
Outside Parliament.
Yeah, and occupy Parliament peacefully. There was no one who had ill intentions. But what happens is that the politicians realized we are losing the narrative. So the police had intelligence in the morning, or maybe the day before, that there's going to be planned goons coming to the city.
Bonnie, just stop for a second.
Yeah.
Occupying Parliament to what end?
To what end? So it's like besieging Parliament. for them to do the right thing.
Was the plan to enter parliament?
There was no plan to enter parliament.
It was to be outside on
Occupy the
Parliament
parliament
Road.
outside and then make them do the right thing.
Just to apply
To have
pressure
them-
by your presence.
To have them aware that the presence.
We are outside and we are
Yes.
watching you.
Okay.
And we begged the police, said, protect parliament. Come and surround the entire parliament. You're going to be outside saying this is what you want. Let them hear us as they vote. Let them hear us as they debate.
Okay.
That was the plan. And even if you look at what Giuliani said, you know what? Carry those small speakers. Come, let's sing, let's dance. Come with their favorite songs. It was a protest party. It's like a block party. We are watching you, but we're doing it in a cool way. Then doctors came and said, we're going to have medical tents. Even this week, actually, someone had volunteered to give us toilets in the city. Then the mosque, Jamia Mosque opened the doors, and Family Basket opened the doors. It's actually a peaceful movement to hold our leaders to account. It was just a peaceful thing. And everything was being done within the constitution.
So what happened?
So what happens, internally, the government is at war with itself. That's the truth. So people in the government see an opportunity to undermine their boss and to do their own things. And they do what they did in Juja Farm. They decide, particular members of parliament from Nairobi area and Kiambu County, are going to hire goons. And when Nkomen knew they were going to be goons, he locked down the city not to allow people to come in. And we should actually open the city because it would have actually had more protesters who are peaceful than goons. Because the goons are not many, but they're more violent. So we learned that goons are going to come to the city. We tell the police. Even Nuruddin knows about this thing. No, it was not a secret there were going to be goons in the city. But I also think Kome played into the goons' hands. Because what actually happened, when the goons showed up, the police retreated. And they left the people to loot shops. But I also think the head of state actually was at play in this game because by the looting happening and shops being destroyed and courts being burnt and city hall and parliament, and I come back to the parliament fire, it gave a chance for the head of state to actually deploy the military. But at the onset, they knew there was going to be goons in that city. What they could have done actually, withdraw the police from the peaceful protesters and go protect property. But what did they do instead? They shot peaceful protesters. They shot at people, they killed people. So the entire country is in mourning, and because the police allowed goons to infiltrate a peaceful protest and cause damage. The last 1 week, we've had 2 peaceful protests. This week, politicians got involved, and that happened. And what is very sad is that this country does not hold leaders to account. Last year, there was the expressway damage, and people died. It was sponsored violence. No one was held to account. And because we never hold leaders accountable when they hire goons, they're allowed to do that over and over again because their playbook is actually, if you get resistance, you hire goons. When people oppose you, you hire goons. Like yesterday, Rongai is actually another good example. There's an activist in the community who sent a message to the OCS, which I have screenshots, and the local NIS guy is telling them the MP of the area is organizing a counter protest, and it's going to be bad because what you promise goons when you give them a job, you tell them, listen, I'm going to give you 1,000 shillings each. I'll protect you from the police, but you have a chance to steal. So when goons come, they're coming to cause mayhem and steal because they know very well who's going to get blamed, the organizer of the original protest.
Yeah. On Tuesday.
Yes.
At this point in the afternoon, when people then gained entry into Parliament, where were you?
I was near Parliament, and I went all the way to Parliament, and then they realized there were goons all over, and there was police shooting people.
How did you identify them as goons?
They raided there's a restaurant opposite City Hall.
Yeah.
There's a new restaurant. There's a Coca-Cola distributor.
It's called Ashaki.
Yeah, Ashaki, and then there's a Coca-Cola distributor. They broke into that. There were protein fences and carrying them away. I even met someone in the National Assembly fridge.
So it was clear that
someone was carrying a fridge.
Okay.
Hey, Alibaba fridge, and I realized this are not your ordinary protesters.
These are not your guys.
So what they decided to do is to withdraw and start telling people to go home because it's going to become bad. But when you talk about the Parliament and what actually happened at Parliament, the people who went to Parliament first well, actually did not go and cause any damage. The destruction and the breaking of chairs and the fire at Parliament was caused by police officers. What the police did actually, to just create this confusion, to justify the killings, they set fire. If you go to Parliament, you go behind Parliament where there's a fire. Actually, any media house actually go and do a checkup. At the back of the Kenyatta Mausoleum, at the back, that's where the fires were lit. If those guys were planning to light a fire, it would have been inside Parliament.
So it wasn't inside Parliament?
It was, no. And then the people who were inside Parliament, and you can see they're doing selfies and videos. The protesters who made inside Parliament did not break things. They were doing pictures and selfies and sitting on the chairs. But when they left, the police came and said, "You need to justify the massacre." And they broke up a few things here and there. The destruction and the fire at Parliament was done by police officers.
So not even the goons?
Not the goons. Let me tell you, you're trying to get into Parliament, and you're trying to see what can I do here, or what can I take. So they went and ate. Some guys were eating. Also, what can I carry away? You don't go there and say, "Let me set a fire." So the fire was actually done later. So go to Parliament today, and this I heard from a member of Parliament. Go to Parliament today. Go and check where the fires were. The particular fire that you saw was at the security office. That is the guys who guard the mausoleum where they sit. No one would have gone behind Parliament to light a fire. You light fire in front of Parliament, or you burn the Parliament itself. They did not do that. So the state allowed goons to do these things. Then the state did a bit of cover-up by setting fires around Parliament to show that the country is under siege.
Okay, so we saw an interesting video.
Yeah.
Of the Tuesday happenings, which gives rise to what you're saying now. When you realized that things were actually going south, and you are now telling people, and we saw it over socials as well, go home, leave the city because things are about to get ugly. But you were told, well, you're not our leader.
I got punched in the face.
It was interesting to see that happened. But there was actually the call for people to disengage from what was happening at that point, because it did get pretty ugly, and say, then now go home. But that was not heeded too. Some people, quite a number of people, did try to leave the city. But then there was still the insistence on staying. Who were those who insisted on staying? Was it a mix of people? Protesters who were previously peaceful, in addition to the goons who were there?
So there were protesters actually who are ignorant. They've never done this before. And Rex Masai was shot at night. And what normally happens when it gets dark, the police are chasing people to go home.
Yeah.
But where are you going to? And there are no buses. And there are no bodas in town. And then you get mugged, because even my nieces and nephews, 4 of them. So my niece came with her friends to the protest. She's 18. And she's in high school. And their way home, they got mugged, all of them, and they're almost beaten. And there were four small girls. And so my idea was, it was before 4 p.m. Say, go home because it's early, and you can walk in groups. But you see, there were goons who were trying to get, let's say, so they can rob people. And then you know, because there's so many protesters on Kenyatta Avenue and Koinange Street, there was absence of police. So it means you had more goons at that particular time than peaceful people, because by that time what had come out, people were burning the Supreme Court, people were trying to burn City Hall. And let me tell you, from experience, I've been to many protests. Peaceful protesters don't burn down things. They understand those things. You don't go unless you have a criminal intent.
Yeah.
And no one comes to a protest as a peaceful protester with criminal intent. You don't start burning things and hitting police with stones, because you understand very well, you throw stones, police have guns.
Sure.
Even yesterday's protest, you saw people throwing stones at the police. I'm like, nah, you're not peaceful protesters. Yeah.
So a number of things happened. I mean, all of this. So Tuesday just became quite a thing. And then we saw, sporadic other activities that happened in other parts of the city and the country.
Yes.
Which all then culminated in the president speaking on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Right? Wednesday night, he spoke.
Yeah.
And it was the complete withdrawal and rejection. So it seemed like there was an answer to what was being asked for by the protest that started a week before that.
Yes.
Was that enough?
So number one, on Tuesday, the president lacks compassion and empathy, and he came and accused people of treason. There was no treason from the protesters. The treason was committed by the state by trying to overthrow the will of the people and the voice of the people. And the president's language was very dehumanizing, because people were in mourning. Mothers had lost their babies, people had lost their spouses. It was just a sad day for the country. And the president is supposed to be a unifier, not a divider. His language, his tone was just off. And it speaks about a man who doesn't even know what he's doing. Because if you're used to having your way, then you get challenged by 19, 18-year-old kids telling you, you know what, that's not the way to go. If you're going to spend our money, you need to explain where you're spending our money and where you're going to spend that money. So the president was challenged. Then he came out guns blazing. And people tell him we can't do that. So the following day, because he's a puppet of the West, IMF, World Bank, and the people that he's signing all these deals with, tell him you can't speak like that. Then he comes back and lies to the country that 6 people died. And that's not true. So is the man in charge, or the man doesn't know what's really happening, to a level where the president has to actually call the military to his help. That means he's not fully in control of the government.
So the rejection of the bill in its entirety then was essentially not enough. Is that what you're saying?
So was it enough? It's too little too late. People did not have to die for him to reject the bill. People have been talking about for weeks, saying this bill is bad for the country. And the argument is very, very simple. If you don't have enough money, you budget well. If you don't have enough money, you don't buy carpets and luxurious cars and do renovations. If you don't have money, you don't give your wife and your deputy's spouse over $1 billion shillings, 1.3 billion. Actually, the Gen Zs actually have a problem. They say, you work here, you work here, you work here. Your spouses don't get salary from this place. Why are you giving your spouse a salary and they don't have a job? They don't have a job. What's the job description that you have to be given over 700 million shillings? People are saying, if your game is that low, man, raise your game so you don't have to give your wife so much money. And there's so many illegalities in that budget. You remember there was a guy called, he was a finance minister called Uhuru Kenyatta. And then he tried to do a heist with that computer error. You remember that computer error many years ago? And this is actually same kind of theft. The guy wants to budget with money in his pocket. He wants to get all the money, then spend the way he wants. We're saying it's our taxes. And we're saying, the president claims, because I don't think it's true, that we're servicing debt. We want to know what debt are we paying. So audit the debt. Because the biggest thing he ever said when he was running for office, we got empty coffers, money was stolen. But he has never made any effort to go after the stolen money. So whose debt are we paying?
Let's take a break on that note. It's 29 minutes to 9. Boniface Mwangi, activist, is our guest this morning. We're talking about the protests and seeing, so what has this protest brought to the fore? What lessons are we learning? What should we carry going forward? What are the ups? What are the downs? Then what conversations should we be having going forward as a country? This is the Situation Room, the agenda setter, Kenya's biggest conversation on SpiceFM, on KTN Home, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Radio Garden, on TikTok. Good morning, we'll be back.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Business news with SpiceFM.
Financial tips brought to you by Stanbic Bank. How do I save more money? Small and regular beats big and infrequent. Both the power of compounding and the discipline of regular savings are critical to saving more and having your savings grow. Additionally, budgeting plays a crucial role. A good budget will allocate a portion for regular savings to keep you focused on this all-important goal. A good guide is to aim to save between 10 to 20% of your income. Financial tips brought to you by Stanbic Bank.
Business Wire has been brought to you by Stanbic Bank. I'm Dennis Aseto. Chinese automotive brand Neta announced its entry into the Kenyan market with Moja EV Kenya, a motor dealer, as its distributor. Zhu Jiang, the overseas business general manager, said that the firm will initially offer the Neta V model, which will retail at 4 million Kenya shillings, about $31,000, and has a range of about 380 kilometers on a full charge. Listed local non-bank finance solutions provider Sanlam Kenya PLC has formulated a business plan to accelerate the firm's growth and profitability. The business recovery plan will provide a growth platform under a restructured financial management strategy. Speaking during the firm's 28th annual general meeting, Sanlam Kenya PLC Group Managing Director Dr. Nyamemba Patrick Tumbo said the business plan has been designed to mitigate and manage operating challenges. Publicly listed Kenya Reinsurance Corporation has announced a significant boost in its dividend performance with a 50% increase in dividend per share from 0.2 shillings in 2022 to 0.3 shillings in 2023. This remarkable growth follows a 53% rise in profit before tax, amounting to 7.03 billion shillings for the year 2023. That was Business Wire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
How do I improve my credit score? For repeat borrowers, 1. Repay all loans, credit cards and mobile short-term loans in good time with discipline. 2. Deal any old accounts. Keep them open and active. If not required, then have them closed by the bank. 3. Consider consolidating your debt facilities. 4. Get a handle on bill payments. For first-time borrowers, do not shy away from borrowing with the bank and repaying in good time to build a good credit score. Financial tips brought to you by Standard Bank.
SpiceFM Business. The weather with SpiceFM.
Sunny in Nairobi going to highs of 21 at 13 currently, 15 and sunny in Nakuru, highs of 24, 14 and sunny in Nyeri with highs of 22. It's 17 and sunny conditions through Eldoret, highs of 23, and Mombasa sunny at 24 with sunny conditions at 26 in Malindi. It's 21 and cloudy in Kisumu, going to highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 27 in a sunny Kakamega at 19. Sunny and 24 in Kampala with highs of 27, while at 23 Dar es Salaam is sunny, going to highs of 30. At 25 partly sunny in Lagos, highs of 30, and at 7 it's sunny in Johannesburg with highs of 17 and lows of 6. Mogadishu sunny, rather light rain showers at 26, and then it's sunny in Addis Ababa at 14. Kinshasa sunny at 20 with highs of 32.
Welcome to SpiceFM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever.
All right, take a quick look at what's going on with traffic coming into the city. Let's take a quick look at the Thika Superhighway, and just a little bit of that left as you're coming through towards Survey, where your service lanes are done, and then out towards the Pangani underpass. Okay, so apart from that, I think we're fine. Whatever was building on Juja Road is seeming to clear up now, as well as on Muranga Road. We're seeing the telltale signs of a little bit of traffic on Limuru Road coming into the city. It's also very busy as you come in then from Ring Road, Kileleshwa, and then out towards Chiromo. That's going to be busy for a while from all that we see. All right, trickle of traffic into the city. Keeping an eye on things. Talk to us on SpiceFM. KE on X, hashtag The Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
24 minutes to 9. Our conversation continues with Boniface Mwangi. Is this a leaderless movement, like they've been saying?
Yes, I think it's a more horizontal leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is at par. So they're saying we all have one voice, we want the same things. In a way, yes, it is.
But are there no influencers within this group? Like there are people who will come together, and when someone says something, then they seem to have sway.
There are people who are very instrumental in the movement, and I think Hanifa is one of them. I think tops. She leads. She's there. She's compassionate. She cares. Been raising money. Then the others, there's Crazy Nairobi and there's Osumo. They may differ on opinion and tactics, but they are still all on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The people who organize the X spaces,
yes,
like the ones we're seeing running for many hours and very many people joining in, are they the same ones that we see on the streets? Or is there like a different thing that's happening online? I think something else that's happening on the ground.
So there's more people who are vocal online and more less visible offline, and then the people who are more visible offline and less vocal online. So there's a bit of both.
So do you want to ask?
Yes, I wanted to ask. You see, when one talks about the leadership issue, the presence or the absence of it, I think the question is being asked in the traditional sense of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Because political movements have had to do with rallies and then gatherings in open spaces, and people stand up to speak, so you can easily recognize. But if you're talking about leadership in this era, it looks like who is followed, who is listened to, who has people who are tuned into the message that they have. Which takes me to how long has this conversation been taking place? Because in my opinion, it appears that the dissatisfaction has existed for a long time. And somehow people coalesce now around the finance bill. The finance bill was the tipping point. They were already happy, they were dissatisfied, then the finance bill comes about, and the question has been asking has been answered. This is now the straw that broke the camel's back. They said, Apana. This one. And yet, the leadership that is being spoken of, there are many people who have voices that people follow and listen to. It's not one person. But on this particular matter, they seem to have agreed. And so they've come together. And it's a diversity. Now, this is new from my opposition. It's new. So one can't say it is Raila Odinga who has called this rally.
And it really helps because there's no one to compromise.
But then again, we've seen these kind of things happen. Like in Egypt, it was a leaderless movement organized on social media that ended up with people pouring onto the streets in Cairo, in Tahrir Square, that forced the president, Mubarak, out of office. And then thereafter, all these people retreated, and it appears like, their fire was just snuffed out. What they were pushing for was not realized. There was no one to carry on that movement. We saw it again in Khartoum. People came out and they wanted a change. They were tired, they were pissed off, and the price of bread was the tipping point that time. And they came out and they said, okay, so enough of this thing, the military dictatorship, Bashir, get out, go. They go back home. Look what happened. So the issue I'm asking is, if there is no leader, but then we have seen lessons from elsewhere where these leaderless movements have actually ended up achieving something, but not achieving something at the same time. What happens? What lessons do we learn?
Actually, I lived in New York when Occupy Wall Street was happening. And Occupy Wall Street was the same model. No leader. You come to they used to have daily meetings, you come and meet, you agree what you're going to agree, and then if you don't agree, you don't implement. And what ended up happening is that they stayed there for months, they got zero results, and people went to jail. Like not a single Wall Street banker went to jail, but the protesters went to jail. And I would advise the Gen Zs to find a way to get people they trust, to lead the conversation and say, this is what you want, and to have non-negotiables, and say, this is how you become the leader, these are non-negotiables, this is how you represent. Because if you want to implement ideas or execute ideas, who does that? Because right now I think that a lady like Hanifa is carrying a very big burden. She's going to many hospitals, she's handling phone calls, her emotional and physical state is stretched. And so, but if she had a committee to lead, like Mao Zedong, it was a committee that helped implement the Great Leap. If you look, Communist China is led by a committee. And so form a committee that can actually help articulate your issues, and then maybe find elders to guide you on how to go about it. Because they have a moment. And if they don't seize the moment, it will fizzle out. Right now, they have everybody's attention. So make the demands now and make non-negotiables. I think they can still do a 1 million march and get the government to give them security and to stop killing them. Because the government this week allowed goons hired by politicians to kill its young people, which was a betrayal of what they're trying to do. And the things that happened this week are unforgivable. If Ruto thinks there's anything he's going to do in the next 2 years, or in the next 1 week, that will make these young people forgive him, he can forget about it. These are unforgivable. Peaceful kids went to the streets and the government let them down. He'll never be forgiven. Our parents might have forgotten about post-election violence. Some of us might have deliberately tried to erase PV from our minds and his role in it. But this particular incident, these kids with their phones, some of them saw it for the first time, brains scattered on the pavement. The government stole their innocence. The Gen Z have not gone through the Moi era of tribal clashes. They didn't go through post-election violence. They've never gone through such a thing. And they saw it on TV, and some saw it firsthand. And they'll never forget, and they'll never forgive.
They've been radicalized.
Completely. Their innocence is gone. They were innocent on Monday. Now they're no longer innocent. Then Githurai happened. Then Rongai happened. They're like, dude, what kind of a president are you? Then, yesterday, Thursday, when they went to the streets with flowers, they're getting arrested for carrying flowers. You're arresting a child for going to mourn someone who died. How messed can you be as a president and as a government? Arresting kids for going to mourn their dead friends.
So which way forward? Because you see, we're hearing two sides of a conversation. Like yesterday, there were two conversations happening at the same time.
Yeah.
There was a conversation that said, let's continue the march.
Yes.
And there was another conversation that was saying, okay, guys, let's galvanize the win and plan for the next steps.
Yes.
And it appears that those two are conflicting and they're still not sure which way to go.
And there was also some people who were paid by the state to incite young people to go to State House, which now brought in a lot of division for yesterday and a lot of fears, which made parents tell their Gen Zs don't go to the streets because going to parliament will get you killed. You see, the problem we have right now, because the government doesn't know how to control the narrative, there is a lot of infiltration and a lot of bad messaging to confuse the people. Now, what next first? We need to mourn the dead. We need to bury our brothers and sisters. We need to discuss compensation. I think before we go to the next level of what happens next, the bill is dead, and we need a people's bill. If the government doesn't have money, we need to address how it can cut its expenditure. But if you get to that juncture, because that's going to be done on the parliament level and other level, what do you want? You want the truth. What really happened? The people responsible for the violence in this particular week need to be held accountable and prosecuted. If it's the president who hired goons or the deputy president or Boniface Mwangi, we need to be held accountable for our actions. We cannot move on like nothing happened. Listen, the Gen Zs, there's no one to do a handshake with. You know, in the past, there's protests, disagreements, there's a handshake.
There's one leader.
There's no one to do a handshake. So if you think you're going to call Boniface or Hanifa or Sumo or Crazy Nairobi and whoever it is and do a handshake, it won't work.
So who's going to drive this conversation? The
demands for now can be made openly. The demands have been said. First, Kome must resign. You can't have an incompetent IG who sends police to kill kids and does not protect property. If Nurudil failed in intelligence, he must resign. People who are irresponsible and did not abdicated their duties must be held accountable. Kabisa. And then let's talk about, we won't wait for 10 years to compensate. You know, like the way if you parliamentarians get everything like this.
Yeah.
You want to know how many died and compensation like this. And I think also most of us go to Raila Odinga because Raila Odinga has had many opportunities to change how things work in this country, but he failed. Because every time people have protested and he was involved in a protest and he does a handshake, he does not ensure compensation for people who died. The Gen Zs are saying those who died in this particular violence must be compensated. We must talk about compensation and they must be celebrated. They must be remembered as heroes because they're trying to save their country from greedy members of parliament who had become a rubber stamp for the executive.
Bonnie, let me ask the question.
Yeah.
Have all these handshakes have they all morphed into a situation where the citizenry don't end up getting the rights that they wanted?
Yeah, every time there's a handshake, it's a compromise that does not benefit the citizens.
If we go back into history, Kadu folding, joining Kan, that was a handshake.
Yes, but there was not so much violence, actually. There was actually little violence.
There was none.
There was none, yeah.
There was none.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking the question. Then I bring it up, 2007, 2008, we have a handshake.
Yeah.
Was that handshake necessary? Did it benefit people in any way?
Okay, we got a new constitution because we had 4 agenda.
Yes.
And we didn't address the 4th one. So there's justice, actually. And this country works very well on every aspect.
Yes.
But when it comes to justice, you don't want to do that because you have to jail people. And this country has a weakness or a fear of jailing politicians. They handle with kids' gloves. So when a politician hires goons, they're not held accountable for hiring goons, but the goons end up in court for theft or stealing or such things. So I think this is we have crossed the Rubicon. We'll never go back. And this particular incident has defined the rest of the rest of this. What happens going forward for the entire existence of this country changed this week, because 70% of the kids in this country are under 35. About 60% are Gen Zs. They're going to run this country on their terms, not on Ruto's terms. He might have the military and the police, But the Gen Z said, no, you can't do that. If you go online right now, they have zero respect for him. You go back to his village, they have zero respect for him because you don't kill kids. You might have tear gas kids at Langata Primary School, but you can't do that again in 2024.
Yeah. There's the idea that, and when we're looking at just what you're talking about now, and if we're going to look in the next few years, that it will be a different leadership. There will be different leadership, whether we want to admit it or not. And that there are certain processes within a formal state.
Yes.
We're not talking about it in a state of anarchy. Within a formal state, that there are certain processes then that have to take place. And then one would say, is it necessary then to have somebody who does take up that position of leadership to drive the agenda?
There's that part. I think one of the things that we're saying for the next steps, we're telling the president, constitute IBC right away. We want to start recalling members of parliament. Like if you cannot dissolve your government, we want you to constitute IBC so that you can have a functioning electoral body to actually do the job. So we're not looking, we are talking about Kenyans actually. We're looking at this thing in how do you take back the country and run it. You take it from the hands of the goons and the mafia and say, how do we have a country that respects the rule of law? And it's actually very sad that when you talk about the rule of law, the president has spoken, yes. The Chief Justice has not said anything about the killings and what even happened to her office. And she's very silent about it. So we're saying we need to take back our country and run this country. And how do you do that? It's through elections, actually.
Yes.
So the Gen Zs are not saying they're going to go and overthrow the government, but they say they can actually put the pressure on the government to resign. So, and they're very creative and very innovative. So going to find new ways to bring the government to its knees. Right now, there is an entire campaign about boycotting politicians' businesses, deplatforming them. So when they come to a church, you leave or you boo them. There are many things they're going to do to undermine. And when you do that, when you undermine authority, they lose legitimacy. They become illegitimate. And that's one way of taking back your power.
For how long can this window remain open? How long do you think this window will remain? There's an open window, right, for taking things to the next level.
Yes.
How long do you see it remaining open?
As long as the anger persists. And the anger is going to be there for a while. And the truth is, what the politicians did to the Kenyan people this week will be done unto them slowly for the next couple of years. That bitterness is there. You don't kill kids. You don't do that.
Yeah, but then there's something that's critical, like Ndu is saying.
Yeah.
So you are angry and disappointed with the current crop of leaders. Yeah. Okay. So you've got to start identifying then who the next leader is. And we keep saying it here on this show very many times that Kenya has had a problem for a long time of voting out leaders and not really considering who you're voting in. So people don't vote in leaders. You're like, so and so, hata tujamuona hapa, hata mfanya nini, hata huyu harudi. And they say even, we better elect a dog.
Yeah.
So there is that danger there. If you don't start thinking and having an open conversation, Project 2027 or 2032, where 2032 for sure, many of the current crop of senior leaders will be getting out. How do you start working towards that 2027, 2032, where you have a new crop of leaders, but those leaders know what the people need? They know that they have got to be answerable to the people. They know that they are actually accountable in everything that they do to the people.
So what I know for a fact is that if Ruto survives this week and this year, he's a one-term president. The events of this week are unforgivable. So he's not going to come back.
You say that with certainty?
Yes. The people have spoken. And so I don't think he's going to come back. You know, the truth is he ran on a platform of hustlers and give them jobs. They don't have jobs. He's overtaxing them. He's taken away healthcare, taken away their education. There's nothing that is actually working in this country. And so unless a miracle happens, he's a one-term president. The second thing is these young people are taking voters' cards and they want to vote for leaders who love and care for them because they don't feel like they're loved and cared for and respected by their leaders. Because the reason why you elect a member of parliament, they have enough care and love for the people to go and serve the people and do the best for the people.
It's easy to say, Bonnie. Everybody who will tell you they've participated in an election, they've been electing somebody whom they think loves and cares
somebody
for
even
them.
has a track record who has proved that he was already doing good. That's why they even elected him in the first place.
Then you go to a house and then you find
and then things
and then it
change.
change. Yeah. But that doesn't mean you give up, brother. It doesn't mean you give up. My sister.
So how do we help the young people
identify
to identify? So how do we all then start changing and thinking?
Eric,
how then do we identify the leader?
Would you permit me to
please
to say something not contrary? Let me go back to what you have said. It isn't who we select, it's how we hold them accountable. We have seen people who we know to be good going into this and changing. The accountability factor has never been there.
Right.
Everything that is being done, if there is no accountability, where the elected member knows I'm going to be held accountable. Bonnie, you said it. I will not speak in church. People will not attend your rallies. And the next thing they do, they'll tell you,
They'll recall you.
we are recalling you. Now, that is holding them to account. Until that is understood, it doesn't matter who we elect, we're going to continue having this problem.
So the secret ingredient in this formula is making sure that accountability stays throughout the 5 years.
It is throughout the 5 years.
I also think, yes, true. I also think that if we had strong institutions, we didn't have to do that because, for example, it would be much easier to recall a member of parliament. If you commit a crime, you are prosecuted and you go to jail. Now, the problem we have is that we have very weak institutions that bend towards the executive or people with money.
But Bonnie, you more than anybody else should realize that everything we're talking about institutions that have people in it.
Yes.
You more than anybody else knows that the power that is given through example and people understanding that there are consequences for what I say and what I do, it doesn't matter where you are. It helps bring about change. If the example from the top that is expected isn't there, then the example has to come from the sovereign, from the bottom, then it has to go up.
So how do we change that?
Yeah.
There's the Kenya we want. But do you have the Kenyans for that Kenya we want? So we need to create the Kenyans for the Kenya we want.
But we already have those Kenyans.
So how do you change their values?
It's the changed values that has brought this discussion. People who are willing to protest and say we don't like this, but we're doing it peacefully.
Yes.
Like the realization that you can.
We are seeing it unfolding before our very, 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 very eyes.
There you go. So the Gen Zs actually are the people who are going to change this country, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Unless
they stay the cause.
Yes, unless we poison them with money and positions. Because that's what we do.
And even if you do, can you poison all of them?
Those who are youthful in the 80s into the 90s, they've pushed and saw the repealing of Section 2A.
Yes.
They pushed and they saw an opposition candidate and grouping of candidates coming to power. They pushed them to come together and so coming to power. They gave up the fight, man.
They didn't give up.
Point. Or they changed. Or whatever happened.
Or they got comfortable.
They got into power and forgot.
Yeah.
I think what the Gens are going to do is going to run away from party politics. Because the other thing is actually the party with the biggest leader or the most known leader get the most votes.
Yeah.
But if we decide to do an a la carte menu where you just elect the best individuals, not political party, not alignment, not money, and it's going to change. What people have realized right now is that how you vote affects your next 5 years. How you vote affects how you live every day, your security, the hospital that you go to, the education in the local school, if they have teachers or not. And so, and young people are translating that into everyday living. And by doing that, they're going to see who is best for them. And I think right now, people are seeing who is best for them. They might not have the whole picture or the bigger picture, but slowly they're going to learn that. I think one of the things that I would actually advise Gen Zs is to get a political education, because it gives you a roadmap into getting to power. You realize that marching alone doesn't get you to State House. You need to know what you do once you get to State House.
I've said it before. Sometimes I look at it and I'm seeing the excitement, and then at the same time I'm looking back and thinking, oh my goodness, this is such a pivotal point, and it stands a risk of getting lost just like that. We were saying the other day, the SARS, we were here when in Nigeria, the youthful people came out and they were agitating against this police outfit. It was the one thing that they all came towards. And then it led them to the next election, the conversation ahead of the election, saying we are also going to, in fact, register as voters. We are going to participate in the election. We are going to get rid of these old people and we're going to bring our young person.
Yeah.
And then on the day of the election, they just didn't turn up. And it didn't happen.
And and a very old president was elected.
And the oldest of them.
of them all.
Okay, you need to have a bit of optimism here. So what can I say? So what they can do to seize the moment is create cells in the community. Wherever you came from, get tens of people. There's something we do in our church called Ecclesia, where you meet once a week and you study the Bible and you discuss what you learned in church on Sunday. Get books, discuss a book every week, and start learning these things. So by the time you're going to fight the system, you know how you're fighting and the tools to use. We had created some manuals and things that we wanted to give them, some reading materials that they need to read to do that. But we need to, as we try to see what lies next year, let's talk about what happened the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Kenyans came out for themselves because the members of parliament let them down. The leaders let them down. We should celebrate that. That's a big win. The entire country, out of the 45 counties, 37 had protests. Across, no budget, no leader, and they came out with one message: reject the finance bill. And the president was still deaf when you have that 7 countries say no to you, and then you still say no. It was treason. It wasn't treason, man. It was people power. So let's celebrate that, because that people power is going to change this country. I celebrate the Gen Zs, and I hope that next week the government will allow us to mourn the dead. We can do a memorial concert in the different counties and say, let's, like the way we did for Garissa, can we do a concert will they allow us to use Uhuru Park? Will they allow us to close Konanga Street and do a concert? I don't know. We're going to try and do that. And the artists who came to the protest this week and the last week can come and we just mourn the dead and live stream the dead and say their names as we demand justice for those who died.
Indeed. Boniface Mwangi, activist, thank you very much for joining us. Kenya's biggest conversation, it continues into the next hour. It's 9 a.m.
It's now 9 a.m. Get effective relief from strong pain with Panadol Extra. Panadol. Relief starts here.
The military will continue to secure government installations from anti-finance bill protesters. In his ruling on the case presented by LSK against the government's deployment of the military, Judge Lawrence Mugambi also asked the government to provide guidance on how the military will be involved in securing the country. He said that the deployment of the army without any explanation and period of service is like making the nation be under a military rule. He has raised claims that since the army has not been trained to deal with civilians, its use in the country can only silence Kenyans who exercise their basic right, thus causing lack of good relationship between civilians and the military. However, Judge Mugambi said that the court will continue to hear complaints arising from violations of human rights that may be carried out within the period that the military is deployed internally.
That the continuation of the military in assisting the police is necessary in view of the need to preserve order, peace and public safety and protect critical infrastructure, and is upheld as it is in line with the provisions of the Constitution and the relevant statutes. 2. That it is necessary and is hereby directed that the terms of engagement, duration of engagement, areas of engagement be clearly defined and gazetted within the next 2 days to alleviate the public fear that their liberties might be put in jeopardy and give public confidence that their liberties will be observed during the duration of such military engagement.
In its case, LSK claimed that there is currently no situation in the country that warrants the deployment of the military. And northeastern leaders have now come out to defend the Director of Intelligence, Nuruddin Haji against accusations by Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua that he failed to advise the president, now led by the DAP Member of Parliament Farah Maalim. The leaders have said that Gachagua's remarks demeaned the office of the president, as he was the one who proposed Haji for the position. The leaders blame Gachagua following the protest, even raising allegations that he wants to use the protesters to dismantle the government. Now they want him to resign if he has no faith in the government that he serves.
Whereas Rigathi Gachagua continues to serve as the Deputy President of this country, we call on him to resign immediately. If he's not happy with his president, let him resign from this administration and let him prepare himself for the contest in 2027. He can run in as a presidential candidate in 2027, and if he's going to be popular with the Kenyan people, we will see what he's going to do. You cannot become a president of this country by continuously dividing Kenyans along ethnic lines, along class lines, along all sorts of things. This country cannot, shall not, will not be led by such divisive elements in this country.
Maalim's statement has been supported by other leaders who have strongly criticized Gachagua on how he is handling issues within government.
Remember, the Deputy President is a member of the National Security Advisory Council. He sits in that committee, and therefore he will be privy to a lot of briefings. Unfortunately, instead of taking his concerns to that committee so it can be addressed, he chose to address senior public officers who ordinarily will not be discussed in public.
You don't expect needs to go on the road or to go parliament and protect parliament. But the way it has come out, that is personal attack to one individual.
You were selected, and I repeat it, you were selected. I was there when you were being selected. The decision to select you over Kindiki changed in a couple of hours, about 12 hours. It could have been Kindiki as deputy president. It's in public domain.
We know where you come from, where you are, and where you are going. You are using a finance bill as a scapegoat. And your intention is to fight with our president, His Excellency William Ruto.
Who is this person, second in command, who talks about a DG of NIS? That is destroying that country, our country. We cannot accept it.
This is News. I'm Dennis Asada. Good morning.
If we just gloss over issues and hope that time heals, then we might find that in generations to come, we might be back at the same situation. And the whole thing is born of stolen elections.
Spice. When it comes to the decisions you make, you must be independent. There's no way you can allow one institution to dictate to you how you're going to conduct your operations, how you're going to decide cases. It's a no.
When you weaken the institution to the point where they cannot take action, then you realize that politicians have to come up and now start dealing with the issues.
That conversation has to die. Our politicians do not like the hard stuff. We must insist on the path of doing things right, whether popular or unpopular.
Money changes hands. That is a fact. If you have political goodwill at the highest top, like in Rwanda, then corruption will be an issue of the past. If you don't have political goodwill at the top, we will pass laws, we will amend laws, we will continue passing laws and re-amending laws, and nothing will happen.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, let's take a look at what's happening with traffic this morning. A little bit of that still left on the Thika Superhighway, and it's coming through towards the CBD. That will diminish in a very short time. Limuru Road has decided, well, let's join the party, albeit late. There's traffic as you come into the CBD as well. Some of that will go towards Westlands, the rest of it indeed into the city. It's busy on Uhuru Highway, in and outbound, right there from museums heading then towards the University of Nairobi Junction. And then on Langata Road today, there's some traffic heading out towards the city as well as coming in on Raila Odinga Way. Let's keep an eye on this and see what happens coming out of traffic hour later. We'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Coming up to 9 minutes after 9. How are you doing? Welcome to the final hour of The Situation Room this June. Next one will be in July. But this weekend, and we pray that you keep healthy and strong. But should you need any medical attention and you're thinking, I don't want to go and sit in a hospital for long queues before I see a doctor, before I get, no. You can just go to Roy Sambu. And what center is it?
The Roy Sambu Specialty Care Center just come up at Jewel Plaza. And what are we talking about here? We're talking about actually specialized care whereby there are a number of, specialists on board, whether we're talking about day surgeons, whether we're talking about gastroenterologists, whether we're talking about oncologists, etc., to be able to sort out many things. And there are many services on board, dialysis, chemotherapy. We're also looking at endoscopy, many things that can be done, because there's a belief that you shouldn't have to travel too far to access medical care. Yeah. And you can actually do that near where you live and near where you work. So the Roy Sambu Specialty Care Center at Jewel Plaza on the Roy Sambu roundabout, it's universal care here and now.
And you can, of course, use the Jubilee Health Insurance cover in this and at least 699 other health facilities across the country. You just need to make sure that you have your Jubilee Health Insurance. And it's simple. It's easy to get. They even allow you to actually make installments when you're paying for your premiums, okay? You can pay in monthly or quarterly installments. You discuss with them, agree on what to do, look at the various options that you have. The J-Care has 6 different options. Look at the one that actually suits your pocket and your needs, and you pick it. Up to 10 million shillings cover for inpatient and outpatient. I mean, if you take that one, you just rest easy and you're assured. You're thinking, this is good. And then every year, you get a free medical checkup for you and your spouse. Imagine that. Every year, free medical checkup for you and your spouse. And this is just because you have this Jubilee. And then if you need to go outside of the country, you can go out of the country and get treatment.
All covered.
All covered.
Fantastic.
By this same cover. This is the way to go. Go to jubileeinsurance.com or City, how do you call them?
The who?
The Jubilee Health Insurance.
How do you call them?
07. You know, when you say how do you call them, I thought, what name do I give them? How do you get to reach them? Well, you reach them through 0709 949 000.
What do you call them?
I call them Jubilee Health Insurance.
Very good. Now we are together.
Yeah. To go together.
To go together.
To go together pamoja.
Also, if you'd like to text them, they can call you back. Just SMS the word health and send it to the short code 40643. That is health to 40643. And they'll call you back. They'll give more information. Sawa? Yeah. City, what's the day's proverb?
The day's proverb, the final proverb from the Islamic Republic of Mauritania. What a child says, he or she, meaning they, have heard from home.
What a child says, they have heard from home. Yeah, it's really self-explanatory. Be careful what you say. Be careful what you say. As we start the next conversation, let's actually just recognize, and Bonnie said this, there are people who have died this week Some of them participating in the protests. Others, maybe they were just passerbys and they got shot, but they have got names. The Nairobian this week has stories about a couple of them. Benson Ouma, who was shot 9 times in Kisumu. Michael Tata, 20-year-old, died after being choked by tear gas. 35-year-old Caroline Shirambi, her body is still lying at the Kakamega County morgue. Shirambi was shot by police during the Tuesday protests in Kakamega town. We've got Rex Kanyike Masai. We've got Evans Kiratu. Evans was only 21 years old when he met his untimely death fighting for a better Kenya. He was pursuing a plumbing course and was on attachment. He hailed from Kiambu. He had moved out of his parents' home just a month ago. He was among those that were out in the streets. And he's now dead. Many of them have gone through this, okay? So now we're asking ourselves the question, so now what? Then we're where we are, okay? The president has said, in fact, in the next couple of days, I'm going to initiate a conversation so we can have a national conversation. How do we discuss these things together, as the president was saying? How do we discuss our next budget together? How do we discuss our debt situation together? How do we discuss how we can ensure that everybody has got access to these basic services, social services, health, education? How can we have this conversation together? What shape should this conversation take? And those that have brought us to this point, the Generation Z and the millennials who are also supporting them, what is the best way then to engage? Like you've said, it's leaderless. It's not that you can say, okay, so bring in delegates from across the 47 counties, bring them together to Bomas, and let's have a conversation. How do we go about this? What are the ideas for actually moving this conversation to the next stage?
Well, first of all, what does together look like in terms of mechanics here? Because to whom are you speaking? Or with whom are you having this collective conversation, whereby we want to coalesce around a desire to actually have these things ironed out? Because this is an uncharted water, first of all, and I say that deliberately, because never have you had a truly open, all-inclusive conversation when it comes to governance. You haven't. So you don't know what it looks like. You don't know how to go about it. Because we all know that in many cases, public participation, which, by the way, is a constitutionally set up mechanism to ensure that this very thing that we're talking about actually takes place. Unfortunately, over time, it has been used as a rubber stamping exercise or a tick box exercise to say that, yes, Constitution says we should have public participation. There. We had 1,000 people in the city baraza and we did it. No. So now we're saying, let's not have fake conversations anymore, but let's have the real ones, whereby you're not trying to tick a box. But a question is answered by a question, Eric. And how will you have this thing that you've actually never done before? And so you have to set up structures whereby you're actually having an open and honest conversation to say, look, we want to do this, and that it must be now all-encompassing governance. It cannot be, it is us to you.
It can't be.
It is clear that it cannot be that way anymore.
True. When Uhuru and his brother, Raila, said we are at that moment, they were right. That we were at that moment where we need to have a national conversation. Then they went about it the wrong way, again, from top down. And I argued here many times, my greatest opposition to BBI was the approach. And I said, this ought to have been a national conversation. And I called it
you said it
a national delegates conference, a conversation that happens where all of us are sitting there in some form of structure and identifying these are our issues.
Yes.
And then this is how we move forward from this point. Instead of saying our issues are with the Constitution, let's amend the Constitution. Maybe not. Maybe the issues are because we have actually not been truthful to the implementation of the Constitution. Can we have those honest conversations? I don't know what shape or form this conversation should have. But I think one of the most obvious ones, direct ways of saying it, is people must meet together somewhere. My proposal during the BBI conversations was, can we have dialogue forums across the 47 counties, then culminate in a national conversation at Bomas, at Nyayo Stadium, at Kasarani, wherever. that says for the next X number of days, we are sitting here. We have brought in the issues from each of the 47 counties, that there have been proper participation of the people, that it has not been, handheld or mismanaged by the state. It's the people themselves talking. How do we ensure that people themselves are talking and bringing out the issues? The Fungamano conversation in the late 90s was on this. It was a civil society coming together and saying, yes, we have all agreed that we need to change this constitution. And we have got to take initiative. And that's why the churches, Professor Kivutha Kibwana and the 4Cs and the others were all coming together from various organizations and groups, and they all fungamanad at Ufungamano. It brought in religious leaders, it brought in the civil society, and the civil society was not homogeneous. It was various civil society organizations. The religious leaders were religious leaders, yes, the NCCK, the Catholic bishops, the Council of Imams, the Hindu Council of Kenya, all of them coming together and all saying, this, can we have a conversation? And then, of course, Parliament also came in with its own CKRC. And in the end, Yashpal Gai, in very good wisdom, said, we cannot have parallel conversations. Let's bring them together. And we ended up with where we are right now. We ended up at Bomas. With the national dialogue on our constitution. How can we shape the next conversation? Because Ruto is saying, we shall have a conversation on our debt. We shall have a conversation on the management of our country. We shall have a conversation on the rights of citizens. We shall have a conversation on how we treat our leaders and how our leaders are more accountable. We shall have all these conversations. How shall they be? There needs to be a very well clearly discussed and structured way of doing this.
I think there has to be willingness to have an open and honest conversation in the very beginning. I tend to think that when there is an agreement for this openness, that some of these other things seem to just go along a lot easier. If on your side and on my side we say, okay, folks, this is where we are. We're at ground zero. Are we willing to say that, there are places where we've made, and honestly, not this is not cajoling from somebody else, but to say really, yes, this is where we are. First of all, how about we start by even if you don't have somebody on, we're not negotiating here. It's not a negotiation and asking for a ceasefire. It is not. It is saying, look, there are certain things that are going on right now that force us to do other things. First of all, it is not a mystery that there's a huge debt burden in the country today. But are you telling Kenyans where that debt went? Do you know? Yes, you do. Are you sharing? You're not. How about we start from there? How about we start by truly saying, you know what? Yes, that there's a little bit more money that ought to be that is being spent on things that are not necessary. Can we start by having that open and honest conversation? Start from there. You know, the question that is often said, what are we bringing to the table? In this case, you know what needs to be brought to the table, even if there's nobody on the other side? Honesty, transparency. This is where we are. Number one. This is where we are. This is the true picture of how truly things are. Now, let us start to build it together. It is not a foreign concept. I promise you, it is not a foreign concept, because there are other jurisdictions on this globe, on this planet, that do that. Folks, this is where we are. And it's not some random person. It is Kenyans. It is you, Timothy. It is you, Eric. It is you, Ednah. And we are saying, look here, guys, country, this is where we are. It is bad. How do we do it? Because if you're not ready to be honest, then there's nothing that we're talking to each other about. We can even say, yes, you messed up. You did. But here you are in this position. Constitutionally and by the law, you are here. Unless people decide that it is not you we even want to be having this conversation with. But if there's going to be any kind of moving forward and taking into consideration and account what Kenyans over who you are governing need and want to hear, then you're wasting your time. And truly, are Kenyans asking for something that is too hard to please? I don't think so. You want a position whereby you can work, you can raise your children, you can have a little bit of an investment here and there, you can get through the day, morning till night, and have a decent meal and be able to take your sick to hospital. That's what people want, is it not? That's what people want. Now, this person that has been put in a position of leadership and governance, can you be honest with me? Can you communicate with me? Can we be together in the decision makings when it comes to how we're going to spend our money? Can you tell me exactly what the state of the situation is? I think that's where we need to start from.
They have not. They have not. And I think, as I agree with you, that we need to start from there, but it's not going to happen by this person or this institution willingly bringing out the information, because it hasn't. This institution has been brought to its knees by the people saying, no. This institution has responded by saying, yes, we need to have this conversation. The people who brought it to its knees need to be at that table and say, all right, so this is how we are going to structure the truth that we want. Yeah. Okay? We need to be the ones who say, so these are our demands. These are the question number one. Question number one, debt audit. Question number two, how much you're spending on a daily basis on what? And accountability for all these things. And so on and so forth. Right? What's the status of the implementation of our constitution? And we can tell you, you have not done this, and the other. Why? So it's not the whys. This is what we're going to do to make sure that we fully implement our constitution. This is what we're going to do to make sure that this police service that we've been reforming over the last 14 years actually gets to be reformed. This is what we're going to do this and the other. And the conversation is, because we're here and we have said that this is what we need, these are the next steps. If it's about the debt audit, Auditor General, Controller of Budget, and the others, okay, tell us what we know so far. This is what we know so far. Now, let's give it to Ndu. Ndu, can you do a forensic audit on all this information? Can you trace what this contract says, when the money was released, in which bank did it land? From there, where did it move? It came into the central bank. Can you do that audit? You shall do that. Sawa, thank you very much, Auditor General. If Ndu needs more information, you shall give.
You shall give.
Okay? Next is this and that. Like that. This institution called government has not been willing to be honest.
That's it.
It will only be honest if it's put in a room and blindfolded and told, we are the better guys. Just like the way they were torturing those young people. And telling them, you better talk to us because us guys are better. If our senior walks in here, things are going to get worse.
So what we're saying, that there needs to be some major housekeeping.
Yes.
That has to happen, and it has to happen now. I don't even think you should say and that's what I said. I think that there was a golden opportunity, right, that was not taken. And truly, if the intent is to have a functioning society, I'm not even talking about people being happy and smiling and burping rainbows. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying functioning society, whereby it is clear that 1 + 1 = 2, and that if you put this in, you will get this out. That's the functionality that I'm talking about. If you don't want to be honest about these things, don't ask people to come and have a negotiation. Not a negotiation. Don't ask people to come and have a conversation with you. There are many pain points right now. Deal with those pain points. The very same things that people were talking about right now, that there's no debt audit. Put it out there. Number one, say this is what has caused us problems. It didn't go. Even say, truly, we don't know where our debt is going. Say it. There are pain points. Deal with the pain points by telling people what exactly is going on. What conversation are you having? The conversation is you come and tell me that, then I tell you, go ahead and deal with it. Tell us the truth about what's going on. Where are we?
There's a mistaken perspective that we've had, and I'm calling it mistaken because that's what it is, that tranquility means peace. If you have people who are passive-aggressive, as Kenyans are, meaning we talk among ourselves violently and talk about the things that are wrong, but on the surface of it, we're very peaceful, we're very quiet, and we're very compliant. But you see our true natures when we're given an opportunity to probably go against the law. Some of us choose to, some of us don't choose to. But when you have an opportunity to actually do right, and you see that it's supported by the topmost leadership, then we have echoes of 2002. And with those echoes also comes what we call missed opportunities. Now, the honesty we speak of, the honesty that the two of you have mentioned, actually, it has to be there. But how far back do we want to go? Because that honesty revolves around the opportunities we've missed and then we've glossed over.
Siti, can I jump in and ask you a question?
Please, jump right in both feet.
You're
please.
a behavioral scientist, so you understand. When somebody is an addict, right, they've abusing whatever it is that they've been abusing, and then they go into an institution, and the people around you can see you're hurting us, man. This thing that you're doing. So in order for us to deal with this thing properly, we need to take you somewhere, right? Or when your body is ridden by cancer and the doctor says the first thing that we need to do is have a radical, in fact they call it a radical surgery. Do they cut some out and leave some in?
Whatever is wrong is cut out completely,
right? Even when you go to rehab, they tell you, bring out everything. It doesn't matter how ugly it is. If we're going to go towards the path whereby there will be some kind of healing and reconciliation, what are you supposed to do? Bring out everything. Put your guts on the table. Without that, that's the kind of blatant, brutal honesty that we're talking about. Because you're dealing with the people that if you don't tell them what's going on and the direction in which you should be going, this thing that we saw this week, it will continue. It will continue, and that's what I was saying. Guts on the table, put it there. Say it as it is. If you truly, truly want to govern over a people whereby things have gone to, tell them. Tell them. How far back do you want to go? As far back as it takes, CT.
You've gone to the heart of the matter. When people have spoken of the truth and reconciliation initiatives that we've had across the globe where people have been at war with each other, at the heart of it is exactly what you're saying. Things that people have held close to their heart, things that have caused them grievances, things that have caused them harm, things that have gotten them to a point where they hate to the point of being willing to kill. So when an opportunity provides itself, that is exactly what they do. If you look at the destructive nature of some members of our police service, these people can't be that brutal unless they themselves have been brutalized in the way that they are managed, in the way that their affairs are managed, in the ways that everything that they do, whatever is required for them to do their jobs are provided for everything. There is a need to also understand, and this understanding has to be common, meaning people have to come to a point where they have a common voice. The reason why we got this 2010 constitution was because people agreed. Agreement means there are things we will not agree on, but we look at the things we generally have consensus over and we say, okay, this let's settle on this one, okay? A national conversation that Eric has been suggesting for the last 3 years takes time. But it must be done. It can't be that because it takes time, we can't do it. Because the alternative is to huddle down.
It's just to piecemeal things.
Yeah,
yes.
Kidogo here, and then we heal, and then you come back 6 months later, and a little bit here.
And then even with protests, you see, it has to be understood. If it isn't redemptive or it isn't transformative, then it's of no use.
Yeah.
It's absolutely of no use.
When something is so bad that because you know what? What we see, it is the boil, the surface that has come to so there's something much deeper. That's the tip. There's something much deeper that must be dealt with, and that's why I go back. When they say we need to cut it out, it is a radical, just like you're saying. It has to be wholly transformative. If it is not, you're playing. You want to clean the top of it, meanwhile the thing is still inside there. And then you say we want to make things better. We want to change. No, and we're talking about through and through. Remember some of the things that Rugo said yesterday? Let us go one by one. Audit. Do it. You have parastatals that you've been talking about since departments and deal with them one by one. Next, go to the next thing. You have an education system that's in a total shambles. Deal with it. You have a health system that is pretending to want to be like it's taking care of issues. Deal with it in totality. Those are the things. Now that's when you come to people and say, okay, Nyeri.
But what is clear is that those in leadership have been unable to do the very things we are saying.
Exactly.
It will not happen.
So we know. See, that's what we're telling you. That's what we're saying. This is the conversation. We're telling you that this and this and this and this needs to happen. Not that you don't know. You are aware. Now, if you don't do it, two things. Number one, you don't want to. Or number two, you are unable to. In the event that you are unable to.
No, let's just jump that step. Let's jump
you've
that
not
step.
done it, so
no, we need to have a national dialogue on all these matters. If it's matters of budget, that room A, Kilimanjaro room, whatever you want to call it,
there.
people in that Kilimanjaro room are looking at budget and budget issues, okay? And what is important, what's not. Bring in Kina Abraham Rugo, bring in the Parliamentary Budget Office, bring in everybody.
People
Okoh,
from
Kuchumi,
Treasury, all those people.
Everybody who's interested, go in there and say, someone comes and says, you know what, I think we should scrap CDF. I think we should open up all these things. I think we should shut down the parastatals. I think we should put more money into education. I think we should... Let them sit in there, discuss. Somebody else is elsewhere talking about what do we need to see to make sure that our police do not kill our people, do not arrest people arbitrarily, do not throw people's bodies in dams and rivers, we do not arrest people in the middle of the night in their underwear. All those things. Pale ni mambo ya
that
breakout but we are having that's breakout room X.
Yeah.
We are having this when we emerge and we bring in all these things together. This is the way we are going. This is it. We know for sure at the end of the day, these guys are telling us for sure what we've done is we've realized that we can actually run this country with a 2 trillion shilling budget.
Yes.
They'll tell us that. We have realized that actually our police service can perform much better if we just did this, and the other.
Yes.
And they'll be accountable because we can put this high power, blah, blah, this can work. We have realized that our children can go to school for free from kindergarten to university, and all those things, let's have a conversation. We have realized, by the way, that this 11 trillion shillings that we are paying, it's actually not 11 trillion shillings, it's actually 8 trillion shillings.
Or in reality, it's actually 3.
It's 3.
That's the truth. Okay.
These are the money, has just been jokes here and there. We have realized. This is all these things that will happen in this conversation.
And those who don't want to have that conversation should remove themselves.
Yeah.
Because we can't keep losing moments of this nature that can transform the country, and then we go back, because it's not as though we go back to the same situation. What we go back to is worse than what we got before.
Yep.
This conversation was a conversation that should have taken place in the Uhuru government, because a lot of the nonsense we're dealing with now were inherited from the Uhuru government.
Indeed.
Exactly.
They were.
So that conversation was not had. Opportunities were lost.
Yep.
Now we have this moment again, and those who are unwilling to have this conversation, to have it honestly, just remove yourself from the conversation. Step aside. Let those who want to have the conversation have the conversation.
But we must be in the room. These guys, politicians, we created a committee and called it a committee of experts. Non-apolitical. They went and looked at the Boma's draft, they looked at the Kilifi draft, they looked at the other draft, they looked at other constitutions, they harmonized, they gave us something. Politicians went to Naivasha. Horse trading this, the other, horse trading this, the other. We see every time nowadays we talk about, but in Naivasha, we cannot allow another Naivasha moment. Are these guys to go and sit somewhere another? No. We must be involved. We must be the ones who are leading the conversation. 25 minutes to 10, we'll open up the phone lines after the business news.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Business news with SpiceFM.
Financial tips brought to you by Standard Bank. How do I save more money? Small and regular beats big and infrequent. Both the power of compounding and the discipline of regular savings are critical to saving more and having your savings grow. Additionally, budgeting plays a crucial role. A good budget will allocate a portion for regular savings to keep you focused on this all-important goal. A good guide is to aim to save between 10 to 20% of your income. Financial tips brought to you by Standard Bank.
Business Wire has been brought to you by Stanbic Bank. I'm Dennis Aseto. Chinese automotive brand Neta announced its entry into the Kenyan market with Moja EV Kenya, a motor dealer, as its distributor. Zhu Jiang, the overseas business general manager, said that the firm will initially offer the Neta V model, which will retail at 4 million Kenya shillings, about $31,000, and has a range of about 380 kilometers on a full charge. Listed local non-bank finance solutions provider Sanlam Kenya PLC has formulated a business plan to accelerate the firm's growth and profitability. The business recovery plan will provide a growth platform under a restructured financial management strategy. Speaking during the firm's 28th annual general meeting, Sanlam Kenya PLC Group Managing Director Dr. Nyamemba Patrick Tumbo said the business plan has been designed to mitigate and manage operating challenges. Publicly listed Kenya Reinsurance Corporation has announced a significant boost in its dividend performance with a 50% increase in dividend per share from 0.2 shillings in 2022 to 0.3 shillings in 2023. This remarkable growth follows a 53% rise in profit before tax, amounting to 7.03 billion shillings for the year 2023. That was Business Wire. I'm Dennis Aseto.
How do I improve my credit score? For repeat borrowers, 1. Repay all loans, credit cards and mobile short-term loans in good time with discipline. 2. Deal any old accounts, keep them open and active. If not required, then have them closed by the bank. 3. Consider consolidating your debt facilities. 4. Get a handle on bill payments. For first-time borrowers, do not shy away from borrowing with the bank and repaying in good time to build a good credit score. Financial tips brought to you by Standard Bank.
SpiceFM Business.
All right, so looking into the city with what's left of traffic this morning on Uhuru Highway and then getting into the city, still some traffic on the Thika Superhighway coming in from drift around Survey. There's some traffic, and on Limuru Road as you come through Muthaiga, that's going to continue for some time. So we're just going to watch out, see what happens through the rest of the morning and indeed through the day. We'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Next 20 minutes, we want to open the phone lines and also hear from you as we participate in the continue with this conversation. So where we are right now, we're at a moment when the president says, we have, I'm hearing what the entire country is saying. The conversation is led and sparked by the Gen Z, but it's everybody who is saying something. So we're at that moment where we need to have that honest conversation. And that's what we're saying this morning. So how should this honest conversation look like? Should it be that the president invites, and he said he's going to start having conversations, he invited the religious leaders, the guys that the Gen Zs are totally pissed off with are the ones that the president first called.
You know,
what should this conversation look like? Who should participate in this conversation?
I think this is where we now need to ask our listeners to tell us what they think it should look like. Yes, if we feel there needs to be a national conversation, let the sovereign tell us what they think it should look like.
Yeah, how should this conversation actually look like? 0719. What's that number?
012.
012?
600.
600?
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, it's 0719?
012-600.
You're not sure?
0719-012-600. We want to hear from you. What should this national conversation look like? If you don't even think there should be a national conversation, okay, it's all right. We'd like also to hear you say it. Let's go to Narok, and this is Saina. Saina.
Hi.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning to you.
Sabaoleng.
Sabaoleng.
Kabisa.
Masikitiko yangu kwanza kuhusu mjadala tunaoongea saa hizi. Shida huwa si nani yako ofisi kule kwa kuingia kwa election. Shida is who will be announced. We don't elect these people. 90% in parliament were not elected. They were announced. That's the problem. So kwanza kwa uchaguzi tuangalie kule kwa namna ya kusajili maneno na kutangaza iko namna gani. Kwa maana mwenye kutangazwa pale sio ule huwa amechaguliwa.
Okay.
3, to streamline these things. Kiti yote ya political seats to change this government. All political seats. Huo mnofu umewekwa kunona huo mshahara upunguzwe. Tukianza kupunguza kwa rais tuseme 1.5 between the presidency and the MCA kuja mpaka 90,000. Utakuta kuwa kwamba wale wanaoingia ofisi ni watu wamejitolea kufanya kazi.
Yep.
What does it interpret? Ina-interpret kuwa kwamba pale hata decision zake ama zao anafanya kwa maana haja kuja hapo kwa maana ya mshahara. Amekuja hapo kwa maana yeye alitaka kwenda kufanya kazi.
Yes.
That is the other one. Haya, mambo kama hii tunasema ati hii gender equality. Kurahisisha. Why don't we have an MP, if a governor stands for the whole county and a senator stands for the whole county, even an MP, kwa maana kazi yake ni kujilegislate law, si tukue na one MP lady, one MP man,
94
senator, one MP, one senator, male and female. Uta reduce hiyo budget yote umereduce.
Sawa Saina. Thank you very much.
Na kwa sahi serikali iondoe wale watu wote wako kwa serikali sahi, wale wameko wote ni wezi. Hata sahi ulikuwa ukisuggest kwa kwamba how do we audit? You cannot audit. Hawatakubali mambo ya kusema tu audit hiyo kitu, kwa maana hiyo 2014 it is the president who was there. Hata kubali kuauditiwa kwa maana hao ndio tunalipia hiyo wizi ndio wako nayo. So I don't know how we shall approach it.
Thank you Saina. Wanjohi in Mombasa.
Hi team, how are you guys?
Very well.
Good morning. Hey, now I don't know, this conversation is like having a conversation with the devil. I'm sorry to use that kind of language.
Why?
Because if you see how they are changing goalposts, and we have declined, I'm not going to sign, and then they know there is a loophole somewhere. These are not people to even discuss with. And in fact, when we are talking about discussion, we need to look at the track records of these people. This is the generation. These are the people who are made by Moi during the Y2K. The people who harassed Kenyans like nobody's business. 207 people are implicated in this. Now, look at the austerity measures that they are talking about. We tighten our belt. Whereas we are spending billions on renovations, and it's so much wastage in the government. This government can be able to get money by cutting down on across everything, the wastage in the government. Look at, guys, look at the president of Zambia. He refused to sign an invoice to buy cars for himself. He said, are there cars in the State House? Yes. Are they moving? Yeah. They have fuel? Yeah. I'm going to use them. Look at Ibrahim Traore. He is still using, 3 years down the road after he took power, he is still using a Defender of 209. He has redirected that money to buy tractors for the farmers. This government, let it not lie to us. When Kibaki took over from Moi, it was worse than
But that, Wajohi, what we are asking this morning, and I'd like to ask this so that even all the other callers can respond straight to the question, how should the conversation look like?
To tell you the truth, Eric, it is very complicated because these guys don't have leaders, and we know they are asking to have the government is asking to see the leaders of these people so that they can be able to manipulate them and use them. We know their tactics. It is very unfortunate. I don't know, but I think we can still do it. We have to be firm on what we are going to do. People who are organizing this, they try and see how we can have people who are sober in their minds.
Okay.
So, and we have them that people who cannot be bought, and not politicians, period. Unfortunately, even not politicians will still be bought. If they tell you they are giving you 10 million, sometimes some people will cave in.
Wajohi, thank you. Thank you. Let's take it from there. William in Nairobi, how are you?
Morning, Eric.
Good morning.
It's the first time I'm calling.
Thank you for calling.
About this conversation.
Yep.
This is my suggestion to the president and the Kenya Kwanza leadership. For the next 2 years, in order for them to restore the faith and confidence, the government needs to, just for 1 year, do away with theft, follow the constitutions, and the laws that we have, the laws of the land. Because we have enough laws to take care of the youth, education, healthcare. The budget is high because we are taking care of budgeted corruption. So if the president could just forgo corruption just for the next 2 years, there will be enough money for the president to reduce the cost of education, especially in the university, to where it was, where Uhuru left it.
Thank you, William. Let's pick other callers. Thank you, William. I want to come to Fred in Dagoretti. Thank you for holding on the line. How should this conversation look like?
Okay, in different groups, and what I've been seeing the youth are suggesting.
Yep.
They want the whole government to be scrapped off.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need this government. They are calling it the Moi orphans.
Mm-hmm.
The Moi orphans should go. We need a new generation.
Mm-hmm.
The whole system is corrupt, and the youth are tired.
So what should the next course of action be?
So we don't need a conversation. What they are suggesting
yep.
is we have a re-election. The whole parliament should be disbanded.
So a snap election?
Yeah, a fresh election should be called.
Okay.
And if possible, we can have international bodies to come and foresee the election, not the IEBC.
Mm.
And we elect new people.
Mm. We
bring in new blood. The Ruto regime is just the one from Moi and the Rigathi. We don't need it anymore.
Okay.
They are corrupt. You cannot change a corrupt mind. Once a corrupt, always a corrupt mind.
Sawa, Fred. Thank you. Anthony in Qatar.
Yeah, good morning.
Morning to you.
I think I've listened to some of the conversations and I think we are losing our track.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if we call snap elections today,
yep.
we might not be able to effect the change that we need.
Mm.
What we need is something that will change the constitution so that whoever comes on these positions is held by something that is valid.
Okay.
We need to go back and look at the constitution and see, is it CDF? Because the parliamentarians of today have become agents of change through the CDF, where they will not do anything. They will not do the core business that they are required to do, which is oversight and legislation. And they become agents of saying that we have this kitty and we'll make ourselves popular with it. And that's the center of their corruption.
Mm-hmm.
So let's scrap with these things. And that can only be done through the effects of a new improved constitution. So that whoever comes into office tomorrow, whether it is the president, whether even if we want their salaries capped at a certain level, that can only be done through a change in constitution and not rather come up with snap changes that will be reverted to by a new regime.
Okay.
What we've seen in Kenya, the problem is not the person who comes into office, but it is how the office has been structured.
Okay.
It still allows and roots for corruption. Yeah.
Thank you, Anthony. Daisy in Eldoret.
Hello, good morning, Situation Room.
Good morning.
My opinion is because our problem in this country is corruption,
yep.
and when we put like experts in a room, the final report, either someone will be bought, or if they can't be bought, they'll be sidelined in the implementation of the recommendations. So my opinion is people to meet from the grassroots. Kama ni yuko kwa village, kama watamit kwa the local primary schools, like everywhere in the country.
Yep.
Na kukuwa na experts in those meetings, waongee, waseme shida zao, recommendations zitoke hapo. In that way, kutakuwa na some sort of accountability from the people. When watakuwa na meet na ikuwe frequently, si ati one time. Yes, that's my opinion.
Thank you, Daisy. Theo in Clayworks.
Hello, this is Theo.
Yes, good morning.
Morning. So I'm a 25-year-old. I've just seen the events of the past few days take place.
Yep.
And I'll say this. So personally, what I'm doing, I have started my own kind of conversation with young adults just like me. Whereby we're trying to understand this whole thing called the global monetary system. I think the issue is we are reacting to a situation that is just, as Ndude put it a few minutes ago, that it's an issue that is a tip of the iceberg. And I think the iceberg itself has to do with our education system. That is not teaching us enough around this issue of our monetary system. We're in a position where, as the youth, we are simply getting into jobs or hearing news about certain events going on, but then we don't have an actual conversation that deals with some of these aspects. And you have to go on platforms like YouTube or on social media to start understanding what, these concepts of money. And I'm saying we need to start from the first principles, the principles of things like understanding the monetary system. That's how we can at least move the conversation to a point where we get people to understand what they are in, because we're all participating in a system that people don't have enough knowledge about.
So civic education, a proper structured,
civic education,
well-funded civic education. Thank you, Theo. Thank you. Peter in Nairobi.
Hello, how are you?
Very well.
Good morning.
Peter, go ahead. Hello. All right.
Hello.
Kibiru in Eldoret, in Dagoretti rather.
Yeah. Now, this is what my opinion, and clearly you can see from the calls you're receiving that there is confusion. Nobody knows how this conversation should go.
Yeah.
This is my opinion. Where is the budget made? The budget is made in Treasury before it's forwarded to the Committee on Budget and Appropriation, right? The same mandarins in Treasury, those people are professionals. They understand the crisis.
One would hope.
Sorry?
One would hope.
One would hope that they understand.
Yes, one would hope. One would hope they are professionals. They understand. However, politics get into their way. Therefore, I think this conversation should have those guys. Then Akina Rugo, the guy yesterday is Abraham Rugo, right?
Yep.
Akina Rugo to come in, civil society, then let them get into a room and formulate a budget. This thing of public participation, I really find it very impractical, because a lot of us are not able to make any meaningful contribution. But the professionals, the private sector groups, civil society are able to come up with something because they understand how government is. So I think those people should get into a room, get us a budget that is sensible. Then from there, we cannot escape Parliament. It will still have to go to Parliament. But the good thing about what we've had the last 5 days or the last 2 weeks is that now the politicians, including the president, are aware that we can rise up and say no. So from there, can they look at that budget the same way they look at it, at the appropriations that they receive, pass it, and we get moving? That's my opinion.
Thank you very much, Kibiru. That's a good one. What are they saying on YouTube?
Oh, quite a lot. Here we are. We must restructure debt repayment. Kenya is unable to effectively repay the debt. Kenya needs a grace period, organize herself, reduce wastage, vigorously fight corruption. Anything else is noise. That's the kind of conversation that needs to be happening now. Mwangi says, can we have a non-elective president, like a CEO, appointed on merits with a job description? You shouldn't think outside in this. You should think outside the box. Democracy and voting does not work in Africa. The current government is full of corrupt individuals. All these individuals must resign. That's where we start the conversation, according to Franklin. Nothing strengthens authority as much as silence. How do you dialogue with people with ears but don't listen? Through action. No more dialogues is what Sam says. Also, the MP should stop acting and talking like they agree with everything without doing anything. They're just bidding their time until, the 3 weeks are up. How on earth do we end up with people who are implicated in YK92 and 2007? Our naivety and lack of comprehension is our Waterloo. We need to have a public forum on selections, optics, cut the belt, open the accounts, and that's what we're talking about. Full transparency.
Yeah.
Everything remains talk. Are these guys willing to initiate the same? Do they have the capacity? Those are the questions. The real problem at this point is not Ruto, it's the legislature. the MPs. Ruto cannot unilaterally reject the law. The only ones who can do this are the MPs, and we should focus on them. Quite some.
It's the quality of the people who we put in parliament. The question about debt, and we've had these conversations, when we started hosting Jimmy Wanjeke, some people would be like, so who's that guy you're hosting? I mean, what does he know about budgets? But it's come to the realization of many that this man has actually been saying something. And maybe it's about time we paid attention to this issue of debt. This debt, because it's eating over 80% of our revenue. What is this that we're paying for? Because when you get to that point and you're wondering, hey, every time, in fact, it's a check-off system. By the time you're getting your payslip from your employer, he has paid for some debt.
For something.
And you're like, when did I take this debt? Yeah, but no, your boss signed the debt for you. Yeah, what did that debt do? See, that debt is the one that bought you lunch last week. And you're like,
how?
What lunch? The chapati mandondo that I ate last week, I'm paying 17,000 shillings for it.
How?
How? That's where we are at. And we need to have that conversation and say, what is this 1.8 trillion shillings that we're going to pay in the next year?
What is it? Where was it from? What is it paying?
And the next year
Where
we'll be paying some more.
Yeah.
And we went to the market last year and, took some other more expensive loan so we can pay another expensive loan.
That is the level of transparency and accountability that we're talking about. And if you cannot answer, then Kenyans actually have the right to say, then we can't pay for it.
Yep.
We don't see where it went. We can't see where it's going. Why should we pay for it?
Yep.
If I have a debt for something that I actually did take on, that's very different. I should be able to see it. And we can see, okay, fine, let's go ahead. You can't see it. You can't see the people who instructed over it. You can't see anything. And then you still want to take responsibility.
This is where you say, all right, so you are in charge, and we can see, we come and attach the wealth and say, where, China, chukweni ile.
Take that one.
Take that one. That one.
Let him go and work for you.
You see that? That shamba, that wealth. Take it. You and your deniako. We, the rest of us don't know.
Why is there reluctance for this matter of debt to be actually discussed in an open forum?
Because you're telling the people who took the debt.
Who took the money.
Yes.
Yeah. You're essentially telling the people that this is the individual or this is the group of people who took the money.
Because everything that we're discussing here and the plight we currently find ourselves in revolves around that particular issue.
It's the biggest burden that we have.
Yes, because in the absence of that debt, the money we collect, it is more than enough to sort out everything we need sorted out.
Extra money.
No, we would not.
No.
Time is up. We thank you very, very much. At the beginning of this month, we said we want to have finance bill conversations. We did not know it will end up with the kind of conversation that has now ballooned all over the country. But we thank you. We thank you because you listened. We thank you because you've engaged. We have come to the end of the Situation Room in June. We hope to see you in July. Have a lovely weekend.